I'm guessing is just like it is the winner will they just divide the 250 by amount of points, right?
Yeah.
Robert, please do correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, I'm trying to do the
Yeah,
math here. And
it's a little too early for math, so don't worry. We're gonna cover the chess. We don't have to turn to mathematicians, but yes, the second $250 will be split by win percentage. So if someone's 80% of their games, they're getting quite a payday.
I like to hear that. I like to hear that. It's definitely very, very exciting. I mean, do you have any predictions for today?
Ooh, asking the hard hitting questions first. I don't know what to expect, honestly, because Sagar doesn't play as much chess, not near as much as Eric, but Sagar's a very talented player. He's way better known these days for his commentary and for his
Mm.
journalism, and he's an exceptional human being. I have so much respect for both of these players, and I would love to give you a prediction, so I'm going to go with Eric Rosen just based on the experience level in online chess.
That definitely does sound right. Eric is also a streamer. I mean, Sagar does as well. But I have seen Eric play a lot of games recently. And, whoever wins today will get to play the one and only Levi Rosman, also known as Gotham Chess, in the round of 8. So today's match is going to be extremely, extremely exciting. I'm
Yes.
hyped.
I'm hyped too because we get so much blitz chess and the players are going to be stressed out. We get to just casually talk about their games. 75 minutes of 5 minute plus 1 second blitz, 45 of the 3+1, and finally 25 minutes of bullet chess. Nemo, I've seen you be playing a lot of bullet on stream lately, so I'm guessing you're excited for that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm really excited to just commentate too on 1 minute bullet chess. It's one of the rarer experiences I think as a commentator because you don't really get to see that. So, I'm definitely very excited. I mean, the 5+1 blitz is also going to be very intense. I'm going to make the wild assumption that the 5+1 blitz is going to be the time format with the most let's say most solid games, let's put it that way. Because as we all know, as the time gets lower and lower, as we go into 1 minute bullet chess, it's games tend to, pieces tend to fly across the board. So this will be very exciting.
Although you'd be surprised by how many time scrambles you get in the 5 minute portion where people are, up plus 10 and then all of a sudden they lose on time. So anything can happen in these formats. I love commentating this. Nemo, I'm so excited to commentate today with you. I can't wait for the games to lift off. That's what I'm always waiting for. We'll remind everybody of the prize fund here. We were talking about that at the top. We're not going to be mathematicians. They can figure out their prize funds, but really what they want to do is qualify for the quarterfinals and
Hmm.
keep moving on.
For sure. I mean, this is very, very exciting. Chess.com has put up a really, really big prize pool, and we're having a lot of fun here. So I am super excited to see the games, and I personally, much like what Robert said, I do think that Eric might be the slight favorite here, just in terms of online chess playing experience. So the games, I'm sure, are going to be extremely exciting, extremely, extremely. And we all know how much Eric loves his opening traps. I've been caught in a few of those myself, so I do think we'll see some very exciting games.
Yeah, and if we do not see a Stafford Gambit today, that's the ultimate do as I say, not as I do. Actually, that's like, yeah, that's really would be disappointing to many of the fans who will be tuning in waiting for a Stafford Gambit since that's been popularized by Eric Rosen.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Eric has made a lot of openings very popular through his amazing YouTube and Twitch channels. So a lot of you guys might actually be getting some inspiration from today's games. At least I definitely hope some of you guys will get inspiration from today's games.
Oh, of course. I mean, Sagar OP, right? That's
Hmm.
what it's all about right now. We got I am Rosen, who's been one of the most instructive chess personalities for many years now. We got Sagar, who maybe newer to the scene for some people, but like I said, I have such tremendous respect for him.
Hmm.
He's been a journalist for a long time. He's like a great source of information and reporting, and he's also an amazing chess player. People sometimes forget about that when you play less and end up talking or writing more. But Sagar is an amazing, amazing asset to the chess community.
For sure. I mean, I've known Sagar personally for a few years now as well. He's definitely being at, I think, every single World Chess Olympiad I've been to, and I'm sure Robert is familiar as well since you've been a coach at a lot of those events. So Sagar is an absolute amazing personality for sure.
I'm so curious though. The first game will be telling because yesterday we had Tanya Sachev, who doesn't play so much online blitz chess. She was quite slow in the early stages of the 5 minute, and she was saying that you get into this sense of comfort that you have 5 minutes rather than 3 minutes. That's so much extra time, and then you kind of needlessly spend time in the opening. So I'm very curious to see how much preparation these two players have done, and for Sagar in particular, will he be up to the task of keeping up on the clock with Eric Rosen?
Yeah, I mean, I do also want to say that preparing as Eric Rosen is a bit scary, because he's got a lot of openings, he's got a lot of things that will pop out at you, and you have to like prepare a lot of things, a lot of lines, a lot of variations, and I'm just, for a blitz game, that's a lot of stuff to remember, right? So this will be a very, very tense match.
Oh, absolutely. And these kind of gambits, even if they may not work in a classical game, you surprise one on your opponent, they spend half their time just trying to figure out the first 10 moves of the game. That can work to your benefit. It also can backfire. Let's be clear. Some of these gambits have risk. They are gambits. You typically give a pawn or some sort of material. So I'm very curious to see which Eric Rosen we get. Maybe we'll get a calm Eric. He is a very calm person overall, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the first few games just to dip his toes in the water if he just challenges Sagar in sort of standard opening fare.
I definitely do want to see what Eric has prepared for today. I mean, we're definitely expecting to see some of his normal, and by normal, I mean the not so normal openings, just to make it clear. Whenever we think normal, we're usually thinking stereotypical Spanish Italians, but with Eric, you never really know. So by normal, of course, I mean Eric's normal openings, which could be really anything. And of course, we'll see how Sagar does respond. I'm not quite familiar with Sagar's gameplay, to be honest, but I do think that he is pretty meticulous. So I'm sure he's prepared something, and I want to see that.
Well, I think what you're saying makes complete sense. I mean, you've studied a lot of chess, and you don't really are not really as familiar with him, and that makes sense because he doesn't play so much anymore. And that goes to show that it's been a while since Sagar's dusted off those pieces and played some of these serious matches. But he is really talented. He likes some sharp play. He's a D4 player by trade, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be an interesting clash of styles.
Yeah, well, this will be exciting. I mean, he's looking a little bit nervous there. I mean, I think Eric is still getting fully set up, so this will be very very intense. And I think one of the things that I'm going to be looking for today in this, especially in the longer games, is really like in terms of gameplay style too, because Eric is quite tactical. He likes to sacrifice. I had quite a few queens chucked at me when I was playing a match against him myself, so that was definitely very exciting. But this is the kind of gameplay that excites me. The kind of sacrifices, the attacks, the aggression. So there's gonna be a lot of very very fun stuff.
And I'm looking at the chat already going wild. Let us know who you're rooting for. Come on. We want to know who you are rooting for. I'm guessing there will be a lot of Sagar fans in the chat, but Eric Rosen, he's got his faithful as well. So I'm curious to see what the breakdown's like.
I already see the "oh no, my queen" memes coming through. Okay.
Oh, they're hyped. Look at that.
Oh,
They are
look at that.
hyped.
Yes, let's go, Chad. This is the kind of energy we want to see. Yes.
Oh my gosh. It's funny because people accuse me of ignoring the chat. I'm always keeping an eye on the chat. What do you think I'm looking this way for? I'm always looking at the chat, but I see everybody. It feels pretty Rosen heavy right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure on YouTube, the Sagar fans will be loud and
Yes,
proud.
for sure, for sure. Um, there are a lot of soccer fans here as well, and I'm really happy to see that. It's a lot of, we got a good match upcoming, and everybody seems to be getting very pumped, and I like this.
Yeah, this is going to be a great battle of two of the best personalities in chess, two of the nicest people, and they don't have to be nice. I hope they realize that today it's not about being gentlemanly. They can go and destroy each other over the board. That's what I'm looking forward to, because when you turn these, pretty soft-spoken, humble people into just competitive chess
Mhm.
players, they hold nothing back.
That's the kind of atmosphere I like. People, always have this impression of chess players, like whatever they are in person is kind of what they're on the board. But I have to admit, when I played Eric Rosen, his personality reflected nothing of his chess, and I was shocked. I was so shocked. I was like, because for me, I mean, personally, I'm quite outspoken in person in real life, and on the board, I'm like very similar. But then there's Eric, who is very, very polite, very kind, very nice, and then all of a sudden on the board, I'm just getting destroyed, and I'm like, oh, so that happened,
Yep.
So this is gonna be very interesting for sure.
And we do have liftoff. I am seeing game one is underway. Sagar's rating is lower than I would have expected. 22-24. That's a sign of somebody who is not playing a lot of blitz, which means the increment will be helpful. And look, we have already D3 on the second move against the Caro-Kann. Eric playing a quiet setup and Sagar taking over the center here with D5 and
Mm-hmm.
E5.
Yep, this is all right. At least the opening for this one is starting out fairly slow.
Whoa, okay. D4.
Oh,
So he goes D3 and then D4. What is in his bag of tricks,
okay,
Nemo?
never mind. I said that, and ignore what I said. Ignore what I said.
And
Forget that.
he's breaking the opening principles. He went D3, then went D4. He put his knight in front of his bishop. He goes bishop D3. This move makes sense to me. He's protecting the pawn E4. He wants to take with the knight on E4, but open the board state up. Black's king is in the center, so white's castling here. I think black should just continue the development. Knight to E7 makes sense with bishop G4. All right,
Ooh.
Sagar's ready for a fight.
Okay, I'm liking this. He goes bishop G4 straight away. This has become very aggressive. I mean, the pawn's already on D4 castled. Black needs to probably castle really soon, or he'll run into a bit of trouble with his own king. So,
Yeah, expect knight E7 and castle, because knight F6, everybody, would be a blunder.
yep.
E5 would happen, and then you put a piece in the E file when the bishop takes the pawn. That king is in the center. That's not good. So instead, we got knight E7. Perfect response. And now castling is going to happen. But look at Eric just continuing as if he's not down a pawn, even material in his mind. But I think his point is after pawn takes D5, he will win back this pawn on D4, and black will be left with an isolated queen pawn.
Honestly, I think Eric is thinking right now, just a pawn. That's not enough. Gotta give a little bit more.
And I'm now looking to see if Eric talks to himself while he plays, because he's so used to streaming and just calmly telling everybody, oh, well, I blundered a pawn. I've seen so many of his streams and his clips where he's just, even when he's blundering, he's the nicest guy in the world. Like, he's the
Yeah.
person you don't want to beat in chess, because chess players, at least at this high level, they enjoy their opponent's suffering. Eric is just too kind. He's like, oh, well, here my opponent, no, they blundered their queen, and I'm going to checkmate them. Oh, okay, well.
One of my favorite, interactions with Eric was one time when I made a really good move, and he was like, "Your brain is so big," and me having never really interacted with somebody quite so wholesome, because um, my community is a little bit, we're not necessarily the most wholesome. I was just like in shock. I was like, is he being sarcastic, or is he being completely honest? And then everybody of course explained to me that Eric is very, very wholesome, and he genuinely meant that. So I will, until my deathbed, I will remember my brain is very big as my favorite ever compliment.
That's awesome. Well, both of these players still, they have, nothing too tense has happened at the moment. There's been two pawns traded off here. Bishop B8. Well, I think we know what's planned here is queen to D6. Let's go for an eventual checkmate on this dark square diagonal here. But
Mhm.
that doesn't look realistic, right, Nemo? There's a knight on F3, a knight on
Yeah.
D4. You'd have to take both of these knights down, and I think that Eric's going to see this coming.
And on top of it, I'm sure G3 is also a fairly solid move in response to Queen D6. So I'm not quite sure what Sagar's plan is going to be in this position. I think I definitely prefer white, just because black. I'm sorry about that.
Is that you?
Have your attention, please.
you have my attention.
And we'll be conducting the monthly test of the fire alarm system.
That scared me, honestly. I thought you were about to be taken by a UFO.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, well, it's amazing. I know from experience, you have my attention, sir. You have all of our attention. Everyone on Twitch, on YouTube, Facebook, I don't know where you're watching this, but you have our attention, and this game also has our attention. But that is one of those things that happens. You can't control that. No need to be embarrassed. You didn't.
I'm so sorry about that, everybody. I guess apparently my apartment just loves to wake people up in like at 10 a.m. with a fire alarm.
Well, I just want to make sure, is everything okay?
Yeah, everything's fine. It's just
okay.
a test.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Because you never know when it's the real deal, and I want to make sure that you're prepared. And
yeah, for sure. I mean, if there was actual fire, don't worry. I will go out of the building.
Oh well, look at that. That was funny. Well, here we see that Sagar's queen has went from d6 to f6, putting some pressure on this knight on f3. But right now it's very compact for Eric. All his minor pieces working together very well. But it goes from, you need to be active, and he goes knight h2 because the position was solid, but you need to actually create threats, and he wants to trade bishops and end up with his knight on g4. So what do you think about this, Nemo?
I do like White's position, I think, a lot more. I think like these isolated pawn structures where Black does not get an attack in are just end up being very uncomfortable endgames, right? As we know, isolated pawn structures, you kind of don't want to exchange the minor pieces, because if you go into an endgame, well, the major pieces, the rook and queens, are really going to just double up on the d pawn, and there's always the breakthrough with the c pawn. So it's the long run, it's the end game that I'm worried about for Sagar in this position. And I mean that aside, I think knight to g4 looks very, very good here, because we've got knight takes f5 and then possibly queen takes d5 right after. So that might just be a free pawn, or even some bishop takes h6 ideas, because we've got a potential.
We've got a fire drill. That's what we have.
We do have a fire drill. I hope this one's not real. At this point, if there's an actual fire, I'm just gonna ignore it. So, like, please.
It sounds like a truck is backing up onto stream right now. That's what. Oh my gosh. Well, this knight g4 move was important, because if the knight were on h2, this pawn on h3 would be hanging. So the knight g4 inclusion was smart by Eric. He does win the d5 pawn, but sometimes actually Black's position gets easier to play even though you're down a pawn. You don't have to worry about that anymore. You've lost the pawn. So you play a move like queen to g6, and maybe at some point there will be a sacrifice on g3, and this king will not be that safe. So I think that Sagar's life is made easier despite the fact that he's down material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually do think that instead of queen takes d5, he did miss the very good opportunity of playing bishop takes h6, which would have been a move that I would have maybe expected Eric to see. But it's also one of those, it's like the first game of the match, right? I don't know if he's done tactics for 30 minutes beforehand. The chances are he has not. So Puzzle Rush is not going to kick in the first game of the match, but I'm definitely excited to see some tactics coming up. I do like this queen g6 move. I do think he's aware that endgames being down a pawn are one of the most uncomfortable things you could possibly get into.
Yeah, no, and look at Eric. He's like, I don't even want to calculate bishop takes g3, but look at Sagar. He's picking up momentum in the position, h5, and kicking the knight back. His queen can move to f5 later in the game to keep an eye out on this h3 pawn. So I feel like White could be a little bit stuck. And if I'm Eric, I need to find a concrete plan at this moment.
Yeah. I mean, is the b7 pawn a free pawn?
I don't know if I'm so brave to take that pawn, but Eric says, yeah, me neither. I'm up one pawn. I don't need to be greedy and take a second, but yeah, that you could have captured that pawn.
I just see pawn, I take pawn, that's my mental.
I mean, it makes sense. You should always be aware when pieces are hanging. And I think that actually, wow, knight to d3. I was thinking knight c6 to save the pawn and put pressure on this bishop here, and said knight into d3. He's just trying to complicate the position. Maybe there will be a sack on f2, a sack on g3, all this kind of stuff that Eric needs to keep his eyes on it for.
You know what I really like here?
What? Queen takes b7?
Yes. It just looks so cool because rook takes e2 doesn't work since you can take on. Okay, well, rook takes e8 is probably the much more solid choice here instead of playing queen takes b. Oh, he takes it though.
Well,
Let's
he
go.
he sees, he eats, but I'm looking at h4. This king is a bit lonely over here. And if you get h4 and attacking the pawn on g3, and if I have to make this move g4, this bishop is very happy on the diagonal. I want the f4 square for my knight going forward. So h4 feels like the right play. And look at the clock, by the way. Eric has a minute, Sagar down near 30 seconds. So he needs to move and he needs to play with the initiative. I would play h4 right now.
H4 is quite an easy move to make in these kinds of positions, just because there's really a lack of any other thing. Oh, wait, that was a very fast G4 from Eric, and I'm not sure if I like that move. Is bishop takes H2?
You could do either move, right? You could take on h2, queen d6 play to go for mate, but this knight's coming to f4, and that's just what bothers me, because if this knight's here, it's going to sit here, and h3 is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, here I think white has to play knight f1.
Yeah.
All right, knight f1 is played.
I mean,
So I go with 13 seconds is there's only a 1 second increment as a reminder to everybody. So it's almost 5-0, right? Almost 5-0. We're just ensuring they do not flag.
right. And knight e2 check, that means the bishop can't move because the queen was defending the rook. Now the queen isn't. So I'm just trying to figure out what white's moves are going to be. I see that I'm not getting checkmated, sure, but knight f4 check back. What if I just keep going like knight e2, knight f4, or rook e2 actually? That could be strong, cutting the queen's protection of the rook. I'm going for this attack. I know only 5 seconds. You got to move. Come on. Queen g6.
Yep, clock.
Yep, clock indeed. And now queen g6, it feels a little bit too slow. Maybe this knight can come into e3. There it goes. This knight can come to f5, and it's Eric who's making progress.
We've solidified the position as white, and now it's going to be quite rough.
Yeah, the knight comes in, and now bishop e3. Look at that. That's a pin that you can't get out of. Just take a free knight. Oh, no.
All right, well, and Sagar has lost on time, unfortunately. He had a very, very slim chance in that game. On that one move, exactly for one move, he had a chance. But that just goes to show, how strong that both of these players are, really. I mean, Eric played a very, very good game and was completely, trying to demolish black. So, very well played game by both of them. However, we're going to round two. And what is this opening?
Well, we have a sort of Catalan style position with the bishop in the long diagonal, and that's why black pushes through to d4, saying you're not getting your knight to c3, you're not getting your pawn to d4. So this is somewhat standard fare, but I would be worried about Eric's position in the long term. You take, and after pawn takes, you have the semi-open file. You can try to open this bishop up on the long diagonal. I like white in these positions.
Really? I actually really enjoy playing black in these positions. I like going knight d7 and then e5. And then I always thought that black actually has a very good control of the center. But of course, I mean, it can be very easily undermined, right? Because white basically has the entire queen side. We see the a3, b4, c5 pawn push, b5 pawn push. So yes, we do see knight d7 here from Eric. Probably expecting an e5 coming up very soon.
Yeah, and the way white can play is knight a3, maybe knight c2 to go after this pawn. Okay, he goes knight to d2, still good. But if e5, I go rook e1, and so black does get this big center. So I think it's just a stylistic choice. Whereas I feel like even though my opponent has the center, I'm just trying to hunt it down, move after move, and you're like, well, I have my big center, and I'm going to proudly use that to my advantage.
For sure. I mean, this is going to lead to a very exciting position. I predict that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that Eric's moves to be like queen d6, pawn a5, knight c5, use those dark squares. And eventually this bishop, which is stuck, if once that bishop gets to a square like f5, then white can see yourself being in trouble.
I mean, here I'm just trying to see what Sagar is going to play. I'm not sure how familiar he is with these positions, but he is letting his time run a little bit low in both of these matches, and that's what's got me a little bit more worried.
Yeah, like a move like a3, that's a move he could have played in 5 seconds, but he's spending more time than is needed to make a move like that. And there's so many ideas here for white. One idea is to play a move like knight h4, open this bishop up on the long diagonal, and then maybe if you allow me to get my knight to f5, but I also have f4 ideas. Once my knight's out the way, your queen is on the same line as my rook. So knight h4 is a pretty standard idea, helping this bishop become more powerful. But he's trying to be perfect right now. That's what I think is going on. He's not accustomed to playing chess so much these days, at least not online. So you start questioning yourself. You try to be a perfectionist, and then you spend too much time, so you don't save it for later when the moments are more complicated.
For sure. Um, I mean, here after 94, I would my first instinct would be to play f5, but I don't
This,
know if that's a little bit too aggressive for this moment. But I do think that f5 is one of those thematic moves in this position, and black actually saves a move because he doesn't have to play f6 first. I mean, there's no threat on the e5 pawn. He has two knights defending that
right.
e5 pawn. So
Yeah, no, F5 is one of those moves that you enjoy in the meantime, and then like 15 moves later, you're like, can I play that pawn back to F6 because my E5 pawn is so weak? But it's in the spirit of the position for sure, Nemo, to play F5, and I would not be surprised if Eric does that, or if he plays a move like pawn A4. You often play a move like this just to close down the queen side, so both options look very good to me.
I'm always of the type to be like, yo, can I push my pawns up? Can I just storm my pawns up the board? I'll do that. But I do like to see Eric play a little bit more solid today. I think he is warming up to his usual style. I do like f6, also very positional, and a4, like
Yeah,
Robert said, also just stopping before ideas.
but the thing is, C5 happens so quickly here, and this could be a really big problem for Eric going forward. This D6 square is this knight's for the taking. There's some times where you play B4 anyway, so that your queen, if en passant happens, can get to this diagonal. Knight H4 ideas still exist. Knight F to D2. I just know these positions very well from the white side, and even if black is okay here, I just think it's so much easier to play for white. And it's, again, a stylistic choice more than anything. But I think Eric, you can tell by his time management right now, he doesn't feel at home in this position.
I do think that he regrets not playing. Okay. He played f5. Okay, as I was saying that, I was gonna say I do think he regrets not playing f5 earlier, because now I was gonna say the d6 square looks very strong for White's knight. I mean, Sagar puts it there with barely a moment's hesitation, and the knight's gonna be comfy, because how do you kick it out? Really, I'm like looking at the board. I'm trying to figure out ways. You can't move the c6 knight away because white can take on d4. I mean, I was thinking maybe rook a5, rook takes c5, just get it out. But even still, it's going to be very
Yeah, he says, I don't want to hear it any longer because the queen does defend, but this is still good for white. You just take on c5, and then the problem with the e5 pawn persists. So it takes, takes, and queen c2, for example. This e5 pawn remains a problem. I can play queen c4 check. My bishop on g2 is very powerful. So even if this pawn is captured, it's going to be a long-term problem. But he takes the bishop. Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that decision.
ooh, wait, now this knight on okay, so we've actually just reversed everything. Now black's knight on c5 is going to be very strong. Not that it's on an outpost or anything right now, but there's just realistically nothing to contest that knight, and the knight is, attacking both d3, and you're also potentially threatening to play e4 in the near future after you move your queen maybe to f6. Oh well, b6 first, and then queen d6 or queen f6. So I do like this position a lot for black. I think Eric is going to be feeling a lot more comfortable here.
Yeah, it's like now you're clearly a pawn down. Before, if you took back on c5, you had a direct threat against this centralized pawn e5, but now that pawn looks safer. I don't see a clear path forward for Sagar, and you can tell because he's spending time. He's like, oh, wait, I took on c8, and now where do I go from here? And I get the decision. You take a bishop, and so you have at least the bishop for the cost of a pawn, but what black center? It's too massive. It's too well defended. So this is going to be a tough rest of the game for Sagar.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think Sagar is feeling it. He's down a whole minute compared to Eric right now, and I'm struggling to find a plan here for white. I'm not gonna lie. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, plans, not finding those. Maybe like a rook c2, rook e2, go after the e5 pawn, but black can just play a rook to e8, this rook to f8 to e8 or something and keep it defended. This knight can always be useful in defending the pawn. And as you said, e4 is on the docket. So even if you get this rook to e2, I'll play e4 with my queen on d6 or something like that, and I'm just pushing forward. So I don't know what to do, and that's why Sagar's spending so much time. He's feeling the pressure of being down a pawn, down one game in the match, and when am I going to get my victories?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, queen c2. I think is these kind of positions that are most difficult to play in blitz when you don't really have tempo, when you don't really have a clear plan, right? Because if it was an over the board game, it's a bit of a different story because then you can sit there for like 20 minutes and be like, ah, yes, let's me go here, 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 reroute my pieces and then decide on something. But when it's blitz, you're kind of looking for plans that are like 2, 3 moves, and there's just nothing like that in this position for white. And I mean, queen c2 is obviously hitting the c5 knight. I'm sure black can just play b6 here.
Yeah, and b6 you might have to do. Well, you don't have to, but you would drop the a4 pawn
Mhm.
otherwise. But I can understand why you wouldn't want to play b6. The knight feels a little bit looser on c6, and white would not be opposed to taking that once the knight moves out of the way from f3, because then the e5 pawn is weaker. So I would even consider knight d2 and knight c4, getting ready to take this, and black's position looks a bit flimsy, honestly.
Yeah, maybe so. I actually think maybe now white has ideas to play maybe knight d2, knight c4, hitting the oh
Queen
oh.
c4. Okay. So king has to go to h8, and then maybe queen b5 is the idea, going after the pawn with the queen, and the knight is a bit stuck because the e5 pawn behind it. But I'm with you. This looks like you're kind of going off to the side needlessly. And
Mm.
we need to remember, this knight on c5 is attacking this pawn on d3. So if the queen ever takes on d6, you drop this pawn on d3 with a fork. So queen d6 played to just
Mhm.
emphasize that. You cannot take on b6 without dropping material. So
Yeah,
this
this
looks
is
bad.
looking I for like actually, I mean, in terms of just the pure position, right? You wouldn't think that white is doing that badly. I mean, it's you know, uh just down a pawn. Okay, wait, is the queen's not trapped, it's queen
No.
b4. Yeah,
Uh,
I was like, okay. And there's no knight takes d3 because of queen takes d6 as well. Maybe the queen would have been better on f6 in hindsight, but
well,
hindsight's always 2020.
it's not never too late. You can play queen f6 or
Mhm.
queen h6. That's a nice move, hitting the knight. Now this pawn d3 is under attack, so bishop f1, I think, by default is the
Oh,
move.
time clock.
Hang the piece. Hanging the
Oh,
piece. Hangs the piece. Oh.
oh, and Sagar will
Ooh.
lose on
Yeah.
position.
Yeah. That's
Oof.
he had that the position he couldn't have asked for a better one. When he went pawn to c5, knight d6, he just didn't follow up precisely, and that's the
Mhm.
nature of chess. Where even if the engine says, "Oh, you're better," if you don't find accurate move after accurate move, it could result in a good position for your opponent. And well, what is this opening? Bishop c4 and queen e2.
Wait, what? This is huh?
Like what's why would you put your queen here? That seems completely unnecessary. And after e5, now he's thinking. So this seems like okay, that's why I'm gonna play some kind of delayed king's gambit. The king's gambit deferred. I don't know. This doesn't look right from my point of view. Just knight c6, bishop g4, all this stuff. Okay,
I have
sorry.
actually never seen a King's Gambit play this way. Not that I play into a lot of King's Gambits, but this is something interesting. I'm not sure if this is home preparation or.
I think it's fine for white. Like, objectively speaking, the position is okay, but there's no benefit of having your queen on e2. It does defend the pawn on e4, but a knight c3 would have done the same. And now you have to watch out for knight to d4, just exploiting this pin here. So
Maybe he
c
wants to go Queen f2, Queen g3.
maybe, but it feels like I don't know. It just feels like a long story here. But I'll trust Eric. I'll just say, Eric, okay, man. I don't understand your openings, your gambits.
But
You
it
do your
works,
thing. Yeah, it works.
If
It
it
works.
works, it works. That we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and castle. So both sides are castling, but now you see the benefit of having these pawns here, where they're more advanced, and so you are the one who can, use your pawns as an attack. Maybe an f5, h3, g4. We all know how those positions go, where white
Mhm.
just storms the pawns, and the black king gets in trouble.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the more. Oh well, I mean, after Bishop takes f4, it's not all too unsimilar from typical Italian and Spanish positions. I want to say, um, but
Yeah.
every single move I'm watching is like, I have never seen something like this before. My brain is just trying to connect the dots, you know? I'm just trying to associate this with something I've seen before, and it's just not happening.
Yeah, because the pawn on the Italian and the Spanish is an f2, but does look similar. And this d5 idea, that is one that you see in that opening, and I think that Sagar timed it well. And
Mm-hmm.
wait, can he just give Eric an isolated pawn? We saw Eric do that to Sagar in the first game. I think that now, yes, take on here, bishop c5 check is possible. I feel like Black's pieces are coming to life.
I do like this position for Black. I am always very insecure about when my opponent has a bishop.
No, it's
Wait,
bad
that's a
move.
wait, whoa, 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 whoa. Oh no, no, no.
No, you can't move your rook from f8 when you're at. You can't do that.
This is one of the very, very typical Spanish ideas, actually, with the bishop takes f7.
Yeah.
This is thematic. This is very thematic.
And
Oh, and Eric sees that. Oh no! And Black was having such a good position, but now after King takes f7, we have Queen c4. And not only can White immediately take back on c5, but the king is actually really weak. And I think King f8 is very likely
they might already be
running
losing.
into checkmate. You know?
Yeah, I feel like there's like knight g5 because there's like a mate here. There's a sack on h7. I think the king has to go to g6. I don't recommend this very often, but king g6 might be the move. But you might get checkmated there too. Your king's coming to h5. Like what? I don't think you survive that either.
Ooh, this is gonna be very rough. King g6, knight h4. King f8, knight g5. Yeah, bishop e6.
All right, here it comes. Here comes knight g5.
Here comes the checkmate ideas from Eric. Eric's gonna snap on this. We already know that.
The rook on f1 is so happy. Knight g5. You have to defend against checkmate here. You play queen to e7, let's say. Then I can. Oh my gosh.
Oh, he didn't.
Look at that. Look at that checkmate. That's what I'm looking for.
It would have been very beautiful, except Eric just took the bishop.
Oh. Well, now the king's safe. Hey, this actually isn't so bad. You're down a pawn.
Hey, it worked out!
You're down one pawn, but there's an isolated pawn on e4. This queen can soon go into the d3 square. This isn't that bad. All things considered, really this is a pleasure.
It could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse. I'm a little bit surprised that Eric let Sagar get off so easily. You know, knowing him, he would have been like, yes, I can checkmate my opponent. Let's do it. I mean, I've seen him, you know. And now.
Okay, so I get it. I get it. Like he's trying to set up the smothered checkmate here, but maybe just move like queen d7, and you can block the check with bishop e6. Like these endgames won't be that bad for Black, but I see the eval bar is really low, so I'm guessing there's like some kind of weird bishop e2 move to take away the check is what should be played. But it looks strange to play bishop e2.
I mean, bishop e2 is a very unnatural move. I don't think Sagar will realistically play it. So there's also queen d3 though, which is probably the more logical kind of move because it serves the purpose of bishop e2. You're stopping the opponent's queen from going to c4, and you're also attacking, the rook on f1, and you're attacking the pawn on e4, and you're connecting your rooks. Wow, what a great move! However, it's putting your queen up so high on the board is very unnatural. It's not something people usually look for. So
yeah, and I like queen e7, and the only reason I see him with bishop e2 is I'm getting used to this. I never like to use engines, I'm gonna be honest about it, but then I see why is it so good for Black. The normal moves that I'm looking at, don't look that good. So then it must be some ridiculous move that nobody's going to play. So that's how it's a process of elimination at this point. But here you have to play bishop e6. You do not put your king in the corner.
Yes, what were you saying about putting the king in the corner, Robert? Would you be as kind as to finish your sentence for the 30,000 people we have watching here?
Yeah, I don't think you should put your king in the corner because some kind of knight f7 check looks scary. But I think what Sagar's relying on is this is one check, and once the king comes here, if the knight moves out the way, the bishop will be able to return and block the queen and attack it. But I see the eval bar skyrocket, which means
the eval bar went
yeah, so it's like there must be something. That means e5 looks very strong as well, just like trying to kick this knight out. I want to get my knight to f7. This bishop isn't exactly well defended either. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's it. So by playing e5, okay, let me just show this. Your knight moves away somewhere. Let's say knight here. Once I check you, I have knight h6 double check, and your bishop falls. Because that's a double check, and the bishop's no longer defended there.
Yes, This is looking most uncomfortable for black. I mean, honestly, every single move in this position just looks very uncomfortable for black.
Sigh of relief. Sigh of relief. Knight d2 played. You can
Ooh.
now h6. The king has the h7 square to run to. Sagar's position is all right, and he's well ahead of the clock, by the way.
Mm-hmm. I do think that e5 still works here. I mean, or you can just play knight f7. Oh, wait, Eric is playing very, very
Timidly.
Yes.
Yeah, it does feel that way. Can I even take this pawn now and regain my material? Because if you pin me, I say, it's not that big of a pin. I'll take your knight, which attacks your queen.
I think he can. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe Eric hasn't had his his empowered tea yet, but he is playing very, very timid, and that shocks me a little bit because I'm like, I mean, this is not that bad for black at all. You know, you might be down a pawn, but the rook comes onto the second file, and then you bring the other rook over, and all of a sudden, black has a lot of counterplay in this position.
I was going to ask, do you think that because he's up 2-0, that's why he's not taking so much risk? He just feels like, hey, I'm leading this match. If everything continues this way, I can just keep that lead. I don't have to risk anything. But I think that's a risk in and of itself. When you stop playing as aggressively because you're trying to protect your lead, that could go wrong as well. I think people think solid play means safe play, but that's not always the case.
I definitely agree with you. I think actually in blitz, it's always better to be on the aggressive side of things. And the reason for this is quite simple, right? Like if you're the one attacking, your opponent has to be the one defending. It's always so much more uncomfortable to be the one defending. And if you just constantly put pressure on your opponent, they're going to start to like lose a little bit of hope. So I definitely would say that Eric should be playing aggressive. Yeah. And that's not to even say that Eric is not aggressive. He's a very aggressive player, and him playing so solid is really quite against like his normal gameplay style. So that's probably the more interesting aspect to me, because if he just played like he would normally, potentially he might be finding these moves, but he's definitely holding back a little bit.
Yeah, he's gonna regret not playing when the king was on f8, not playing knight g5. That is definitely an Eric Rosen type of vicious mating attack. Excuse me. But right now, he still has an extra pawn, opposite colored bishops, and Sagar takes on f3. He's going to trade, and he's saying, "I'm down a pawn, but my rook is way better than your rook in the corner. So if you take, the pawn will take back." We just see that happen. That's a powerful rook, keeping your king stuck on the first rank, keeping your rook tied to the a pawn. So I think black is certainly fine here. We'll see, though, if black can even play for more somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is one of those positions where it should be a draw, but seeing how both players are running quite low on time, pieces might start flying. However, f4 is a very solid choice. I mean, you get your bishop out. Oh,
this knight needs to get right here. If that knight gets to f3, black is just cruising in this game, but obviously that's very difficult when
every single square going to f3 might be defended, but we can hope.
Oh, well, now that pawn is what I'm going after.
I take back what I said.
95. Wait a second. Wait a second.
It's happening. It's happening. Now 95. Knight f3 is actually happening.
That's that checkmating configuration, Once this knight gets to f3, you just want to take this pawn on h2 with your rook, and the king is caught. So king g6, knight f3, these are moves that Sagar's, just go. Just go. Mm-hmm. And what do you even do here? Because I'm going to go knight f3, I'm going to go h5, I'm going to go h4, and I'm just going to keep your king locked in the corner.
Ooh, getting checkmated. Oh, he just doesn't. He just ignores it. Oh.
Here it goes. Here it goes. Here comes the pawn. And oh my God, you play g3 to cut the bishop off. So if you can get this to work, h4, that was a great move, rook f1, though. Really good move, rook f1. I can show that after the game, but there was like a really sick mating net. Okay, but this is winning for black. Completely winning for black. This king is caught.
Friendly reminder to everybody that just because it's an end game does not wait. That the pawn?
Oh, he dropped the pawn. Oh, that's such an important pawn, and this bishop is now protecting me. The rook! Take the rook! It's hanging. Oh my gosh, what a turn of events there. Oh, I laughed.
My brain hasn't even finished processing the fact that the pawn dropped and the rook was already dropped, and I'm like,
yeah, okay. I'm laughing out of like nervousness for both players more than anything. I'm just like, what's happening? But now black is up a rook, so Sagar's going to get his first victory. And after the game, I'll show you that checkmate that we didn't see, but that Eric prevented. So,
ooh, Ooh,
Wow.
easy 14 points for Sagar.
Woo! All right, let's pull up the analysis board here so you'll see the
Mhm.
live position. But right around, where was it? Around here, before rook f1, if you played some kind of move like rook to b1, h4, bishop c7, and g3, it cuts off the bishop. So if pawn takes pawn, rook h2, that's the exact checkmating pattern that we were looking for, is the knight takes away the square and the rook would land in with checkmate. So that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, it's an end game, but as a reminder, you can still get checkmated end game. And this is more of a reminder to myself for all the times when I just ignore my opponent, straight beelining for my king in an end game where there's only like 3 pawns left, and I just get checkmated. And I'm like, so what
Yeah.
happened? You know?
And it goes to show that in the end game, the king can be used as a weapon. That's what Sagar did. He brought his king forward, and he could have kept doing that. Unfortunately, he moved his pawn too soon, dropped the pawn. He still won the game. So it's 2-1. Ooh, we have one of these fashionable lines. Look at that bishop, Nemo. That's a great piece. And even though white is down a pawn, I've seen the likes of Mickey Adams and
This
other.
reminds me of a Grunfeld reversed.
Yeah,
I'm just
no, that's
looking
a
at it
that's a good
like,
call. It's a good
okay.
call. But look at this. This bishop is so strong, and I always enjoy these positions from White's perspective because the pawn is irrelevant in the current position. You can play f4. There it is. Protect this knight in the center. Your bishop is so powerful, keeping the bishop on c8 stuck in place. I really could not recommend this position for Black, but maybe Eric is more familiar than I am and knows how to deal with this.
Yes, I mean, I don't think this is Eric's style of position. You know, we talked a little bit about how Eric has been playing very timid chess in his past 3 games, but he's not a timid player by any, standard. And I think getting into these positions, um, unless he planned this, you know, I don't know that. This can't be too comfortable for Black because I definitely feel like White is going to be always on the plus side here. I really like e4 here actually. As I was saying
Oh,
this, I like e4
wow.
here for white because you can't play d takes e3. You get another amazing pawn to the center. I mean, you're blocking off your bishop a little bit, but your knight can always move, and then you always have e5. Um,
Wow, I like that move a lot. E4 allows you to sacrifice your knight because you want to put your pawn on the e5 square. So that was a cool tactic there. Instead, Sagar, I think we understand his decision making. He wants to play rook to d1 and get his pawn back and say, my bishop, my knight, I have the better pieces on this board.
mhm. I
Okay,
mean,
so
here got rook f to d1.
yeah, it looks.
That looks like a juicy pawn. That's a
I,
juicer right there.
Yeah, that's a juicer, exactly. Let me just take my pawn back. Why not? I think the position, you see the evaluation bar. I'm looking at it now off to the side here, that it says about level, slightly better for white. But from a practical point of view, these positions are always difficult for black to play because this bishop is so strong. And if you ever play bishop c6, you ruin your queenside pawn structure. So it's just about the quality of the pieces, not the quantity at this point.
For sure. Yeah, quality over quantity.
And well,
Okay,
now
we get the
quantity's even.
pawn.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's even material. If you play bishop b5 and take this knight, then you're left facing off against this bishop for the rest of the game. So he's going for that. I guess it just felt like the right thing to do. But I don't know. I still think white retains the edge. The bishop is stronger than this knight here.
Yeah, I think that this is one of those positions where being white is just awesome because, you have very active pieces, but if white doesn't play carefully, black can snap back and take some control of the center again with rook to d8 and whenever the b7 pawn is actually protected now, so you also have like chances to play rook c8. So I'm actually kind of curious to see what Sagar is going to do in this position because there's not like a clear plan for white. So it's kind of one of those positions where you sort of have to wait around and not make your position any worse.
Yeah, that's true. Because, if you move the knight too quickly, you can drop his pawn on e2 and queen d6. And all right, now if we trade queens, my knight is happy to move out the way because I fork your rook and your bishop and also hit this b7 pawn. So I actually really like this move, queen d6. And now the question is for Eric, do I want to trade queens? I have no choice. So how am I going to trade queens? The black queen can't move anywhere to avoid it.
Yeah. I mean, here, queen takes a7, not pretty natural, I would say.
Yep.
I'm actually really curious as to where, like, I think bishop to f3 after, and then just finding a nice spot for the knight. There's quite a few, right? We have e5, we have potentially b6. All those squares are potential for the knight, but you do have to protect your e2 pawn.
Yeah, good reminder because we would like to just move our knight to a5 or something like that, which is playable in fact because the b7 pawn is weak. But I like, as you said, bishop f3 or rook e1, some kind of move that just defends this pawn, and then our knight is free to go.
Hmm.
I like bishop f3 though. You're right because I want my rook is tied down to this rook, so bishop f3 says in the event the rooks get traded, my e2 pawn is still defended.
Yep, for sure. Uh, that being said, knight a5 does also look really good. Okay, bishop f3 is very natural, of course, just defending the pawn. Then we want to go knight a5 next, potentially.
And that bishop's so powerful. It defends, it attacks, knight a5 coming, as we keep talking about. And how does black play here? If I gave black two free moves that are not just like stealing pieces, what's the actual strategy for black? And okay, knight d5 does make sense. I would play king f2. No, I don't even want to see a knight get in the e3 square. It may not do anything.
We can also play rook to d1,
True.
just pinning the knight, which might be really strong because we have some e4 ideas coming, and black does have to respond to that. And if you can't just move the rook away. Well, actually, can you just move the rook away? No, this is the part where like endgames are so confusing because if you just move the rook away, I guess you can take and then take on e2.
Right.
Um,
That's a good catch by you though, because a lot of people would think they can't move the rook because you drop the pawn, but the e2 pawn loses defender when the bishop takes on d5. So you're right, the rook can move, but where to, right? If you move your rook, say to here, my knight comes into d6 potentially, hitting your rook, hitting your bishop. I want to trade one pair of rooks for white, so I think knight e5 now, get that knight out the way. This looks like a very unpleasant position for black.
yeah, this does not look very comfortable. I think 95 right now. We've been preparing to play 95 by defending the e pawn, and perfect spot for the knight. The rook can pretty much only go to d6.
And can I take on? I'm wondering if I can take on d5 because there's back rank checkmates, and if you take with the pawn on d5, you get stuck with an isolated pawn and a knight against a bishop. So it's a little deep, but like in some event like this where you try to trade, you can't take with the rook because the back rank checkmate. You have to take with the pawn, and hey, that's an isolated pawn, and I'm happy to play against that. Rook c7, all this good stuff.
Very true. But what about, after rook d6? I mean, the knight can't go anywhere, right? Because like you said, there is the back rank checkmate. So what if you could put more pressure on it in some way?
That's a really good call. That if this knight were to move, I would take and back rank checkmate you. But e4, the knight would go to square like e7 or b6 to stop the mate. So e4 is tempting, but perhaps not entirely accurate.
We could try to undermine the knight with... Okay, well, he played e5. I was going to suggest f5 maybe, but... I mean, e4 is a very natural move too. I think e4 is perfectly fine.
Yeah, knight b6 sort of forced because after the trade, rook c7 is the move you want to play. And if the knight was on e7, it'd be under attack. And the b7 pawn, now at least the knight is safer. But rook c7 actually still might just win material. Your rook gets to the 7th rank. And how do you protect both f7 and b7?
I think the call is you don't.
I guess you play f6. That's at least
true. You're
a tempo gaining move.
Yeah.
And then where's this knight go? So this could get kind of awkward very quickly for white, but I think rook c7 is objectively a good decision. It just becomes hard because it's tactical. Your knight may get stuck on the f7 square if you put your knight in there. So he does it. I like it.
Eric is up a minute. Ooh.
Yeah, I would prefer to have the white pieces in this position for sure, but that minute on the clock, that's getting me a bit nervous. Knight f7, you're like, is my knight ever going to get out of there? Because look at that. Doesn't have any square to get to from f7. No safe squares there. That could be too much of a risk. And he's thinking, well, can I get away with it?
Yeah, I think after f7, knight to f7, rook d7, rook takes d7, bishop takes d7. Maybe this knight d8.
Yeah.
Or knight d6. I think the knight does get out, but Sagar is spending a lot of time on this move, and that makes me nervous.
He does it. Wow, he does it. He's brave, and he goes for it because, as you said, if the rook trade happens, b7 is defended, but the knight gets out to d6. And if not for the rook trade, this b7 pawn is hanging. This bishop maybe go to g4 to hit the e6 pawn. Hey, this is looking pretty interesting here.
For sure.
And where else can you go? Rook d3, there's bishop e2. Think about what changes with every move played. Your rook gets in your bishop's way. I will trade bishops, and I think bishop e2 looks good.
Yeah.
Bishop g4 also. But okay, here he goes. He's going to take, and he's going to bring his knight out, and then watch out for this king getting checkmated.
Ooh, this is going to be intense. We're going to see potentially rook d7 maybe? Just trying to keep things complicated.
Yeah, trading the rooks off makes you feel a bit safer. This rook is very strong here, but white is still better. As you were saying, Nemo, the knight gets back out to the d6 square or to d8, honestly. Both look pretty tempting. And I feel like white might even win a pawn in some of these lines.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm like mostly worried about is that also bishop takes b4 and then you suddenly get double pawns on the b file. And on top of that, the b7 pawn is still hanging, you know?
Yeah. And I guess, rook takes a3 is the obvious move in quotes, but rook d7, he does go for it. But now knight d8 hits both pawns, and there he goes. Bishop g4, I think, which wins this pawn on e6. Oh, no, your knight's trapped.
Wait, the knight is fully
Your
trapped.
knight's trapped. Okay, f5 saves the knight for the moment, but just you can take and then play king e7, and at best, you,
Oh, I mean, there was e5 and then that.
Yeah.
So you win a pawn, but
this is still good for black, right?
yeah, it's still quite a comfortable position. Now white's actually the one with the isolated pawn on e4.
Right.
I mean, not that it matters that much because it's a minor piece endgame, but white will still be tied down to protecting that pawn for a while.
Isn't what?
Wait, what? Wait, he
this
just moved the king.
The king just won the pawn. Time trouble does bad things to people. But he was trying to get his bishop to b7. I understand his plan, but I think that Sagar's lack of online experience is coming back to haunt him here.
The pawn was hanging for quite a few moves too, so I was, okay.
Bishop e2, knight c7. Yeah, or knight c3. That's even more active than start pushing this one.
f4, okay.
Yeah, this is going to be a win in the bag for Eric. Just push it. Push him.
Quite, and yeah, it's a very straightforward position for black to play, sorry.
Let's be a bit careful because this b5 pawn, if I get to capture that, then maybe I have some chances to draw this, but I'm already looking at sacrificing it. I know that I shouldn't, but I'm tempted to. So knight d6 is a way better move. King e4, but can I get this pawn somehow? King g3, king e3. No, knight check, and then pawn push.
Yeah, all right. Knight e4. Oh, pawn push straight away also works.
Yeah.
Knight e4, knight.
It's like almost Zug's well.
Oh.
That's it. Hang it,
okay.
Please. It would have been stalemate if not for that h pawn. But
he's going for checkmate.
Yeah. Wow. That's really sad turn of events there for Sagar because he was playing extremely well, and this will be our final game before taking the halfway break. It's a halftime in the 5+1 portion, but it just must be upsetting for him because he was outplaying Eric. He pushed him back. He traded those final pair of rooks. He was having a knight on d8, attacking two pawns, and then he just slipped for one turn. He moved his king, which he wants to do in the endgame, but he didn't seize the moment, and that allowed Eric to take a 2-game lead.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Sagar was playing really well. He's definitely picking it up after the last two, after the two losses he had at the start, and this is pretty much he's getting warmed up. I think he's getting warmed up. I think he's ready to go. And in my opinion, Eric needs to maybe play less timid, play like his normal self, and just really just be himself. He's a very aggressive player. He can be extremely powerful at tactics, and there's no reason to not show that off in this match currently. I mean, the last game he played well for sure, but he missed a lot of tactical potential.
Yeah.
In the opening, and then Sagar played the rest of the game really well. So definitely a lot of chances, a lot of exciting chess coming from both.
For sure. We're going to take our quick break, and when we return, we'll get back to this match between two of the finest ambassadors the game of chess has. Stay tuned, everybody. You will not want to miss the action.
and we are back. And I'm glad to see that there is an amazing meme. We got pulled up here. Actually, I didn't notice this as we were going live, but yeah, this is basically me right now. I'm casting as my apartment is on fire. So yep, this is a mood. I'm actually gonna make sure that this shows up on Twitter. I
That-
will make sure.
That is amazing. Shout out to our producer for getting that up in front of you all. That is so funny, but it happens. I've been commenting a long time. You never know what sounds, what sirens coming from New York City you'll get. So I feel your pain. I feel you.
It's okay. I mean, nothing serious happened. It was just, a practice drill. So we're okay. We're fine. But I am at least awake now. And I'm sure that these players are very much awake now, too, after having played 4 games already. I never realized quite how slowly 5+1 goes, as somebody who almost exclusively plays 1 minute bullet chess. I think we've watched already. I mean, it was just a halftime. So half of 75 is
You doing math again? Are you struggling with your math?
37. Wait, 37.5. Okay, I'm sure that was not 37.5. I'm not sure how long it was.
This is amazing.
Okay. Anyways, there were only 4 games played in quite a long period of time. So that is the conclusion I've arrived at. And there's still going to be a few more games played in the next 30 minutes. So it'll be very, very exciting.
Oh wow! Lesson learned: never ask Nemo for help calculating anything. Got it. Except for chess. But the math, we're gonna say that's too much effort. No.
I dropped out of school. Not gonna lie, 2 days ago. So people can no longer make fun of me for having a math minor because I am no longer doing my math minor.
It's okay. I don't have math skills either, but I don't even try. See that? Sometimes you just pass that point. And we see Eric is playing a more principled. It's just like a Spanish we got here. So this is your bread and butter, Nemo, right? You got Spanish. You're happy. Central control for white. Black brings the bishop out to g4 because white didn't play h3. What do you see in this position?
I mean, I've always wondered in these positions if knight takes e4 works, and the answer is no, it does not work because of bishop to d5. So, guys, it's not a free pawn, okay? Don't take that pawn. It's very, very much poisoned.
Yeah, just showing that quick. You can't protect both knights in the diagonal, so that would be a blunder. And yeah, people ask that all the time, and it's good to show it. Just that a bishop hitting the 2 knights like that wins material.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is a very, very stereotypical Spanish position, and I am obviously, quite a fan of the Spanish. So I'm enjoying this position a lot for white. I would say I don't think this is too comfortable, too much of an issue for white at all. Honestly, probably not one of the more critical lines for black.
Yes, and the center does look well defended right now, and I just am being informed we got a raid from Anna Chess, so good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for bringing everybody here. We have a great match ahead. It's already 4 games in. It is between International Master Eric Rosen and International Master Sagar Shah in the I'm Not a GM Speed Chess Championship. 4 games in, 3-1 Eric Rosen. Right now, we like his setup here with pawns on e4 and d4, but Nemo, what next, right? You have the good-looking position, but how do you turn this into something more?
Well, I mean, typical ideas in the Spanish, or of course, you either find a way to attack on the king side after closing the center. So we might see d5. I always like the idea of d5 and then h3, or h3 and then d5. Both ideas work, maybe. And the idea, of course, is to always push g4, but you usually want to push g4 when the center is already closed, and or you've already set up, all your pieces for the attack, so you're not just weakening your king. So I'm definitely hoping that this bishop c2 move means we'll see some excitement, but also having
there's the answer. There's the excitement you look for. We have pawns staring each other down. We've got the X in the center here. And which pawn do you take? Do you take any of the pawns, or what's going on with this tension? That's always the question you have to ask yourself. I don't mind your move g4 here.
I like g4, but then I'm expecting knight takes g4. I think it's probably after g4, knight takes g4 is probably not like a solid choice or anything like that, and it won't be played in classical. But I think in blitz, it's always very effective to um, make the position more complicated.
Yes, because there's a drawback to taking either pawn. If you take on d5, when the knight captures on d5, this bishop is under attack, and black is happy to give up the knight on f6, eventually for this bishop on e3. If you take on e5, my knight captures back, and there was a pin. So g4 was played, and now all eyes are on this g4 square. Will there be a capture? I feel like Sagar is a solid player, more so than he's not trying to go for tactical flair when it doesn't exist. So knight takes g4, I believe, has too much risk, but he does have time. He's up half a minute on the clock. Will he play knight takes g4?
Um, I think actually, with the amount he's thinking, I'm probably gonna say no. I think he takes d4 is probably more solid.
And hey, look at you
Okay.
calling his shots here. And now after knight takes d4, we can trade some knights in the center. This bishop can end up on g6. And I don't mind black's position because I see the eval bar saying, oh, white is slightly better. But that's right now. And it's these types of positions where white's king gets under fire later in the game. So white has to be very careful, even though I like Eric's position.
Hmm. I'm of the opinion that like these kind of like once white gets c takes d4 in and bishop g6 and then you get e5 in, ooh, white's pawn like push on the king side is so scary, you know? I mean, there's not a lot of pieces like left. Well, not a lot of pieces. That's only two minor pieces that really will be swapped off, but it's still a very very scary kind of middle game and end game potentially for black because now yeah we see e5. White has amazing control of the center. Um, after knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, I really want to see a like an f4 as well, even though
Mm-hmm.
that's a little bit ambitious. But I am enjoying this position as white for sure.
Yeah, and one of the key themes of this is pawn on c7 is not a good pawn. So if you can even simplify rather than pressing forward, which I like those ideas with an eventual f4 and pushing on the king side, if you can play some simple moves like rook c1 and keep that pawn stuck, because black's main idea is to say, I don't, ooh, that's a knight position, push my pawn to c5. I want to rush my pawn forward to chisel at your center because if I get d4, e5 becomes weak. I'm opening up the board, and only one of us has an overextended kingside position. So that's what I would be looking to stop if I'm Eric, and he's spending time. He's down a minute on the clock. So
Mhm.
that's concerning me about the future of his position here.
I just want Eric to play like he normally does, you know? I mean, uh he is a very aggressive, intuitive player. If he
Yes.
just kind of lets it all flow, if he just like, plays like he normally does, I think the moves will come a lot easier to him. I think, he's got his hoodie up a little bit. He's looking a little bit nervous. There is definitely quite
Wow.
ooh.
Because now you have to take en passant. You have no choice because if you allow this pawn up to f5, you are in big trouble. So I do think we'll just see e takes f3. I know that people think that's illegal, but when your pawn moves two squares and you can capture it right now as if it moved one. En
Mm-hmm.
passant. E takes
En
f3.
passant. Yep. I always forget about this when I do puzzles. Always, every single time. It's just like, but the thing is, when you see en passant on the board, you're like, I see en passant, I take en passant, because it's so rare. But then when you're doing a puzzle, you never see the en passant.
It's true. And look, we have this pre-moved bishop takes g6. He expected the en passant to come. Take with the h pawn. You want to capture towards the center. Keep your pawn on f7, which also covers white's pass pawn, on the e file. And I'm worried about this dynamic with these pawns here. I like white's position again. For now, I like it, but c5, just what I was talking about. This e5 pawn is the target. This center's collapsing, which is bad news for white's king.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that f4 move. I think I would have preferred something maybe a little bit more solid because that pawn wasn't realistically going to go anywhere. So a lot of pressure could be put on it. But now white's king is looking a little bit weak. The c pawn is looking a little bit weak. Um, and black has a lot of chances to just pile up pieces on the e file and the d file.
Yeah, this c pawn is either a great pass pawn or something that black is just going to target and try to win. And actually, if you trade off pieces of bishop f2, you have to calculate ideas bishop takes c5 and all that stuff, but I don't think bishop takes c5 works because this queen is overloaded defending the rook, or both rooks, I should say. And so bishop c5, there's rook takes e5, and once your queen lands on e5, my queen steals your rook in the corner, so this would just win material for white. So that's sad news for Sagar, who would like to take that pawn. And if you can't take that pawn, well, that's a healthy pass pawn.
Mm-hmm. Yep, this is definitely definitely a very complicated end game, and I'm like starting to like these complicated end games because they take us out of our comfort zone. They give us something very exciting to look at, and here I think Rook DA is probably my go-to choice just because that rook hasn't done anything. Okay, we do see the Rook D8.
Yes,
All
and
right.
you're playing tactically, and I really like it because rook takes d8 would actually lose this pawn in c5 by force. Rook d8, rook e1 check, bishop e1. I'm not going to take your rook. I'm going to take your pawn first. You always want to look, can I get that intermezzo? That's a check. I will take your rook next, and then black steals a pawn. So there are plenty of tactical lines in this variation. I like rook d8 a lot, and we see that Eric trying to figure out he takes on e5. Okay, that makes sense. Rook takes d1. The c5 pawn remains.
Mm-hmm. And this is going to be the battle between is the pass pawn more powerful or is white's king weaker? Really, like that is what this entire position is going to end up coming to. I mean, the position bar the engine says is equal because for the pass pawn, white has a weak king.
Right. And if you play c6, that's the clearest illustration. Bishop d6 stops your pass pawn while helping a checkmate idea. Or maybe it's not checkmate, but it's an attack. So I think practically like black's position, even though I should like white's position. If this is a classical game, I'm taking white. I'm saying, okay, I'm going to avoid your checkmates and all your checks. But right now, look at this. King move here. I saw the eval bar dip. Queen d5 check. Good looking move. And you can even just go back and forth a bit. Or queen c6 to block it. But I don't want to be passive. That's the thing. Is I don't want to sit in front of the pawn. Wow.
Well, that is very aggressive king move.
Yeah, I don't buy that because even with the king on g3, if you ever go c6, the bishop would come out here. So I'm not enjoying this king marching forward. I think it's going to go back this time.
It's going to be a draw.
Wow. Okay. I would have played on if I were Sagar. And this is where the inexperience online comes in. You're up 6 seconds. There's a king on g3 out in the open. I would have tried to win that game and use time as a weapon.
Up 6 seconds. when it comes down to these time scrambles, any amount of time really helps you. So as a avid bullet player myself, that those 6 seconds, oh yeah, you already know that I'm going to prefer the side up those few precious seconds.
Right. And it's not, the position was not winning for black, it wasn't even better for black. I think it was just kind of a double-edged position where either side could win. That pass pawn could promote, or white's king could get checkmated. But with that extra time, if you're a bullet player, I need to make the most of my chances. I'm down 2 points in this match. That could have been a game to cut the lead or the deficit in half. But I like this line that Sagar keeps going back to, the knight on c4, knight on f3. We saw this a couple games ago. He did get his knight trapped, which was a sad thing for him, but his position was good.
For sure. I mean, I think Sagar is playing these positions very confidently, which I like. I'm sure he's already thought a little bit about what he should have done better, like what he should have improved on from last time. So we're actually going to a position we've seen before. And if you missed the first game between Eric and Sagar in this position, well, Sagar really popped off. So that's actually where he got his 1 point. So.
And queen d2 played this time instead of queen d3. So that's a little of a nuance here. The queen on d3 may be more susceptible to a bishop d7 to b5. So let's just park the queen on d2. And actually, that allows rook c4 to be played. Maybe that's the biggest difference of all, is that rook c4, if you wanted to win the pawn in this manner, could have been played, and there would have been no pin on the queen on d3. So, but okay, he goes rook to d1, and we're back to where we came from in the other game.
This is looking very familiar.
Yes, it is indeed. And actually, I wonder what Eric did during the break, and we can ask in the post-match interviews, because I would have looked at the opening. I don't think he felt truly comfortable here, but he's going right back to it. So I'm curious if he actually looked at this at all, or if he just said, I was able to hold him off as best I could. Let's just go back to it.
Yep.
This just looks amazing for white. This knight, this rook, this bishop, this rook coming to c7. This pawn on b7 is a problem. This pawn on f7 is a target. You couldn't ask for a better position nearly 20 moves into the game.
Yeah, and I do think, it's actually very interesting that Eric got back into this opening despite how the first game went, because I'm sure it wasn't very comfortable for him. And we can see how Sagar is has only used 30 seconds for his first 20 moves, and that's definitely great. Okay, a little bit of a deviation here, right? Am I or am
Yeah,
I?
the queens came off in a different manner. It's
Yeah.
it's sort of the same, but yes, it's not exactly the same. And you made a point earlier. The pawn e2 is under attack. Maybe just bishop f3 looks strong. King can come to f2. Protect that pawn first, and then continue your path forward in a bit. But something you just said there about how Sagar only spent 30 seconds. That's the biggest thing to me. Is Sagar's shown that he's not that comfortable in the blitz format. Not yet. Maybe he's getting it under himself, or maybe he's finally finding his form. But I would try to use the clock as a weapon as best I can if I'm Eric. And by going right into Sagar's pet line, you allow him to make these 20 moves quickly. And then now when he's thinking, he has plenty of time remaining to figure out how to proceed.
Wait, is there not just bishop takes e2 here?
There is, but then rook d8 check. This
Rook
b7 pawn
e8.
hangs. Oh, rook e8. That's probably what was missed, and
Oh.
that's it's like you take this pawn, rook d8 check. You assume, oh, I have to take first, but you're right. Rook e8 first makes sense, and if I take, you take back. b7 is defended, and even here, white can play rook c1, rook c7, and I don't think white's any worse. But you're right that pawn can indeed be captured.
I mean, I think Eric's now thinking, can I or can I not?
Yeah, it's one of those moves where it's probably fine right now, but you want to think where that takes us in the game, because you do not want to win this pawn if it costs you this pawn on b7, because the queen side majority will be easier to push. The king is close to the pawns in the center, and that's why Eric ultimately decided on king to f8, but he's just going to have to suffer for the foreseeable future.
I think rook d8 here too is very, very similar to the rook d8 we would have looked at after bishop takes e2.
Yes, and I think you can do the same thing. Take rook c1, try to get this rook to c7. That's where my eyes are taking me, and once your rook gets to c7, black's in big trouble.
For sure. We might see king takes e8 here, and then if rook c1. Oh, okay. We're just securing the e2 pawn first.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, white's seeing no rush, right? Like he has all the time in the world to play rook c1, rook c7.
Yeah, and even actually, if the knights and the rooks come off the board, white is still much better. So, for example, if you play knight d7 and I trade, your bishop takes, so this might happen, and the rook comes to c1 and you go rook c8, we trade everything. White still is better because this bishop is an active piece. Your bishop will be on c8 as a defensive piece. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see all that. But I guess Sagar says, hey, actually, I have a tempo to use. Your rook can't move yet. The pawn on b7 is hanging. So I like the way he's playing this.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
Wait,
what?
whoa.
That's a pawn. That's a free
Maybe
pawn.
thought he had rook c3, but there's rook to d3.
Yeah, rook d3 just blocks. And I'm trying to look at Eric's face here. The guy is so stoic. He doesn't respond to anything. Like he's not even. He just is acting as if it's just another move in a normal game of chess. But he did just drop a pawn. But Sagar on the other side, he just kind of perked up in his chair there. He's like, yeah, okay, we're gonna get a win. We're gonna.
Oh yeah, let's go. I see him.
yeah, he's ready to go. All right, this is a match. We're in the thick of this thing here, and that was a big oversight by Eric, but it wasn't a one-move blunder. I don't want to call it. I think the pressure got to him, and the pressure not of the match overall, but this specific position. I think he needs to change this. If I were his coach,
I definitely agree.
Yeah. We went to the quicker time controls. I would say, Eric, maybe don't play this line, or just here's something you can do within this line that makes your life easier. But Eric, right now, just
Eric's probably thinking, "Oh no, my pawn" in his head.
But actually, like, "Oh no, my pawn for real!"
Yeah. Oh no, not the pawn.
This check here would win the a3 pawn, if not for rook to d3. And all right, we're gonna see rook d3 played, and I think Sagar is just going to convert this endgame. It doesn't seem like it's one where black has too many chances, but weirder things have happened, and he is only at one pawn, so it's not game over just yet.
Yeah, I mean, these are the kind of end games that you actually have to play a little bit accurately in order to win. It's the d pawn is not a pass pawn; it's actually an isolated pawn. So now the plan will be to, potentially create the pass pawn on the queen side, because you do have a pawn majority there, while at the same time not losing your d pawn.
And This
I like
takes
this.
Yeah, it takes care of both, right? Your D pawn is not protected. The bishop can come to C4, and once this happens, the B pawn is a pass pawn, but it's also a decoy. Oh, I like. Okay, now it's just a pass pawn, not even a decoy. You're gonna put your pawn to B6. The king will have to sit in front, and then White's king will just march over to the king side, and that's sort of what I meant by decoys. You don't even need your B pawn to stay on the board forever, as long as it distracts Black's king long enough for White's king to dart over to the king side.
Yeah, this is one of the positions that I think Sagar is going to pick up.
Yeah.
And, the success of this opening just goes to show that maybe Eric does need to choose another opening. And as we're going to go into an even faster time control, I think that'll be even more crucial because Sagar having being up 2 minutes at 40 seconds against Eric.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that speaks for itself, doesn't it?
That definitely does it itself. And I'm one of those kind of people who, whenever I play somebody, I'm looking at their clock. Like the first thing I see is their clock, because the position is a lot of things, but if you lose on time, you lose the game as well. And this is maybe not the best kind of way to introduce chess to perhaps newer people, but the clock is definitely very important.
Oh, that's true in most sports as well, right? If you're down a bit, you might run out of time and you can't
Mhm.
catch up. So, I mean, look at this. This king is caught, king e7, king f8. This king is going to just hunt down and win all these pawns. This
Mhm.
seems like a very straightforward win. And what you're saying about the clock, though, it's true that I think Eric needs a more double-edged opening to try to take advantage of the fact that Sagar does not play that much online chess and that he may find himself in time trouble and may not be able to play that high caliber chess, but in time trouble, that is. But Sagar wins. It's now 3.5, 2.5. We have ourselves a very close match, and Sagar now gets the black pieces. And just a look at the clock, this might be our last 5 minute game. So if this game goes as long as the others have, this will be our final game in the longest time control.
I'm so perplexed by this queen e2 move.
Yeah, I don't
I
like it.
feel like there's a lot of better ways, to get this style of a position. And queen e2 just feels like one of those moves where it doesn't really do anything apart from defend e4. But even then, I would have preferred to have just the pawn on d3 to protect e4. So
Right. And if I'm Eric, I'm thinking about this because he's playing the same openings and there was that break. I'm like, wait, did Vidit call up Sagar and just like give him some opening advice? Like that's what would be in the back of my head is, he's got some powerful friends. And if he just gets a phone call, hey, maybe you should look into this line. That's what would concern me. So I would be playing I would dodge. I'd be dodging whatever preparation he might be doing. And Sagar confidently goes back to the same exact line. And he did have a good position in the previous game before he blundered this pawn on f7 with check. That was the biggest problem for him.
yeah, this is he's learned his lesson for sure. I'm actually really interested in knowing like what exactly is Eric's plan for this entire match, because we've seen the same opening a few times now, right? Like we've seen them repeat the same style of opening. So surely something must change at some point. It's just a matter of, I think, when. But so far, this doesn't seem to be causing White any issues. Surprisingly, this Queen E2 move, which is very very funny to me,
Yeah.
a very perplexing move.
And Eric sort of got the ideal setup that he was aiming for. He would like to push his pawns over here on the king side and say, I have an attack. And that's why Sagar reacted with e takes f4. He knew that was coming. And with a closed position, the attack would feel even more powerful because Black's pieces were restricted and couldn't fight back. So look at this, d4, e4. This is the king's gambit come to life, but even stronger. The king is safe and castled. f4 is falling. And once that falls, the open f file, the bishop on c4 aiming at the f7 pawn, the black king. I would be very concerned right now for Sagar. So something went wrong here, and I don't know exactly what. So these pieces are tricky.
We're all just confused about what to do after Queen E2.
Yeah, it's somehow catching everybody off guard. And Eric is the one who's well ahead in the clock. So he's coming up with this tricky opening that Sagar's struggling to meet.
Yeah, this is just one of those things where it's like he already knows what didn't work last time, so
Yes.
he's not gonna do it. However, how do you improve on the spot? That's very difficult because it's not like he had time to just go off and prepare a whole new repertoire against Eric's, E4, bishop C4, queen E2. So he's probably here just as confused as we are.
Knight A5 was a great move though, because when you're getting attacked, a lot of people think I just need to put up a defensive wall and I need to deal with it directly. Sometimes you can defend by attacking your opponent. So what Sagar is doing is he's striking in the center. First C5, now he takes D4. He'll have moves like Queen B6, Knight C6, all this kind of stuff to go after White's pawns. And this gives him the counterplay needed so that White doesn't have the free reign on the king side. So I really like what Sagar did. Knight A5, Knight on the rims, often are dim, but here it actually dimmed White's attacking chances. And look, Bishop E3, a retreating move. Now you can play Knight to B4, go after this bishop, and all of a sudden Black is creating threats, and now White doesn't have that sufficient time to go for a checkmating attack.
The pair of bishops in this position are great for Eric. You know, at some point, the E pawn will probably move up, and then all of a sudden your pawns are just aimed at. Okay, well, as I'm saying that, Sagar knows he's got to stop off those bishops. So.
And this is now all of a sudden Black's king feels very safe, right?
Knight takes D3, yeah.
A couple moves ago, I was like, wait, that pawn on F7 is pinned, the piece in the F file, and he's doing everything right. Sagar's playing this perfectly to say, I was worse, and now I think I'm completely fine. I put my pawn on light square. If E5, my knight comes into the E4 square, and it's even material, no attack for White. I'm not trying to claim that Black is better in this position, but Black is definitely more comfortable. So the trajectory of the game has been in Sagar's favor.
For sure. I mean, here, knight E4, okay. Knight C3 is pretty natural move. We still have to develop that knight. It's almost, we're 17 moves, and we haven't developed the knight on B1.
So it's about time, right? Knight C3.
It's about time. It's about time. I mean, I always like to tell people, and you know, as coaching PogChamp, I'm sure you tell them a lot too. Try to get all your pieces developed before move 10 or something. But here we are. All right, move 18. Knight finally moved, and it's immediately gone.
Well, it's important to note why Sagar took the knight rather than the bishop. If he took this bishop, note that this pawn on D5 is on a light square. This bishop cannot on E7 can't defend this pawn on D5. So in the event that is a knight against a bishop, this knight would try to eventually come to C3, a queen to F3, and attack the pawn. So this is why it's easier for Black to defend. Queen D7 now. Just connect your rooks, maybe rook C6. I think that Black is completely fine, and there could be a future where actually Sagar takes over the initiative because this bishop on E3 on the dark squares is defensive, covering the pawns. Later in the game, the bishop on E7 could be used as an aggressive piece.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those positions where it's like super, super solid. We both have the same color bishop, so going into endgame, that would just mean that it's realistically a draw because there's no significant weaknesses anywhere. However, that being said, it is, you know, a blitz game, so there's going to be probably some action coming up soon as players run a little bit lower on time. Eric is up a whole minute and a little bit more, so that's what's got me a little bit more concerned. I think Sagar is like really trying to find his footing in this position. Not that it's like a very difficult position to play, but whenever somebody uses a lot of time to spend on any position, it just goes to show, you know, they either have something amazing planned or it's just not one of the most comfortable positions.
Yes, and you know he plays rooks. What? Bishop B4. No.
Wait, whoa.
Bishop B4. Rook C3. I get the intention. You're trying to double in the C file, but let's see Eric's face. He doesn't even react. How is that possible?
Oh no, my rook.
Yeah, how is that possible that he doesn't even react? Like, that's he walked into a pin.
He's so casual about it. He's like, well, that happened, I guess.
Yeah, it's like it's as if this didn't even happen to him. It's like somebody else is playing this game and he just happens to be on screen. But I mean, amazing composure. He dropped his rook, and now Sagar, he's ready to convert this, win this game, and even up the match score. Wow. What a turn of events in this game here. And credit to Sagar, because he could have just fallen victim to some kind of checkmate. Instead, he fended Eric off, and he did tenaciously. He struck in the center. He got counterplay. And now I would play rook to G6 in the near future to say, let's trade rooks. You're never going to attack me. And yeah, rook G6 now.
Yep. I think this will be a very easy pickup by Sagar. And then that's absolutely incredible. I mean, he played a very solid game. nothing major particularly happened. And, sometimes that's all chess needs to be, right? You just wait for your opponent to make a mistake, you catch them out on that mistake, and then all of a sudden it's GG.
Yep. And the reason why this is so easy now is because once the rooks get traded, black will play queen a1 and this c3 pawn is gone. So bishop g5, that's a good response by Eric. He's in trouble no matter what. At least keep it a bit complicated. Sagar under a minute on the clock. Making move at h5 is a bit risky, so it attacks the rook, but that could backfire. You just need to find several accurate moves to put this game away. I think I would play h6 here just to trade the rooks off.
Mm-hmm.
And there we go. Rook takes g4.
It's hard to make a mistake in this position as black. It's very difficult.
That's true. Just do not touch this pawn on g7. Yeah. That would be the only mistake you can make, is giving up the dark squares on the king side. But with the pawn on g7, nice centralization. The pawn on g4 is in attack. This rook can do what the other rook did. Rook c6 over to g6 perhaps. Yeah, Sagar is going to convert this one.
Yep, for sure. This is one of those things where it's just like, Eric is just, playing long. He's still up a minute on the clock. So, he hopes that there's chances. But he knows, we all know, there's very little chance in this position for white. However, it is the last game of the 5+1 anyway. So it's not like he's missing out on anything by finishing the game.
Right. That's good to talk about match strategy, because sometimes, let's say there were 30 seconds left in the 5-minute portion. You might just resign to get one final game if you feel that that's your best chance. But for Eric, no. He thinks the quicker time controls, because Sagar has been moving more deliberately throughout this match. But right now, Sagar hasn't won yet. He's down to 28 seconds, counting down. If he gets into a bullet scramble with no time left, that's how things go wrong. But I love this move, queen a2, rook c4, win this pawn. All right, no more. I don't even have to worry. At first, I was saying, 26 seconds, 25. It just
feels so bad playing these positions with zero counterplay. Now the bishop can't even move, and there's literally nowhere you could go. I just feel bad for Eric, But Sagar just played such an amazing game, so I really, really, really respect that, and I really respect how he just got that advantage, just crushed Eric positionally, being up the exchange. It's just incredible to see, for sure.
Yes, and I often believe that mistakes like the one that Eric made by blundering the exchange, walking to a pin, it's caused by something earlier, because of course he sees that bishop b4 can be a response, but I feel like he didn't get what he wanted out of the opening, and that may have been weighing on him a little bit. Just do not allow, by the way, there we go. So Sagar goes back, because you don't want to allow any sort of draw here. So the queen is coming to safety. This a4 pawn can push, the b pawn can push, and I think Sagar's doing everything perfectly at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
b4, yeah, breaking down the pawn chain. d4 is now weak as well. That's a pass pawn. Just a matter of time. That's a free. Yeah, perfect play by Sagar.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Sagar looks like he's woken up fully. I don't know what else to say, because Eric was leading the match 2-0 at some point, and then all of a sudden Sagar was fighting back, and now the match will be tied after this game. And this is the part where we talked about in terms of strategies at the start, right, Robert? We were talking about how when you're playing this, maybe Eric thinks that he can just kind of play solid, stall out the match. He's already up 2 points and everything will be fine. But I guess what he didn't expect is Sagar to suddenly be like, yes, I'm gonna be the one winning. I know I'm down points, but I will win. And that is part of chess that we all really like, because there's always chances, and this is just incredible.
Well, if I'm Sagar, I'm happy to get this experience. Right? He's playing in time trouble, and he's looking like a true bullet player. He's spending almost no time for his moves. It is a completely winning position, but when you don't play much online bullet, all of a sudden you get to 10 seconds, you're like, wait, and then you blunder things everywhere. So Sagar, he's very confident at this point. His king is coming in. He's going to promote his pawn, and he's going to be up a rook. Rook c3, and then take this bishop, and then get the queen. And I know some people are like, oh, Eric should resign. Why is he not resigning? Eric Rosen doesn't resign, and he actually has been able to get stalemates because he doesn't resign.
This is one of those positions, but
no,
I'm actually, if there was queen to f1, that'd be like a stalemate trick, but I'm sure Sagar would not be falling for that. So always worth the effort, you know, to try to get stalemated. You never know what happens. I mean, I can confirm that there have been games where I should have resigned, like in world championships, and it's just been like, I'm not gonna resign, and you just swindle your opponent. So it's actually a very, very important lesson to learn as well from Eric, to just, you know, play the game.
Yeah, I mean, if you resign, you get 0 points. If you end up losing by checkmate, you get 0 points. You can't score if you resign. So I think that Eric did the right thing. And speaking of score, it is 3.5, 3.5. We're going to take a break. And when we return, we'll get to the 3 minute plus 1 second increment time control. It's excitement here between Sagar Shah and Eric Rosen in this I'm Not GM Speeches Championship, brought to you by Chess.com.
Yep. right, and welcome back, everybody. Before we dive into another really exciting portion of the match between Eric and Sagar, let's talk a little bit about PogChamps 3, which I know every single one of you guys is extremely hyped for. So here we can see all the participants in PogChamps 3 and let us know in the chat who you are cheering for. I mean, I personally have been low-key following a lot of these people playing. It's so exciting to see people getting into chess. It's such an exciting thing. I've played chess for 18 years of my life and I haven't probably seen this much hype from like the public audience. So I'm personally just like, this is like a big deal for me. This is a big deal for me. But yeah, so I mean, I've personally coached Michelle Carre already. Robert, have you coached anybody?
I have indeed. And, I got to say, if I had to pick a favorite, it's Ludwig.
Oh yes, Ludwig. I mean, Ludwig, we're familiar with, right? We've seen Ludwig not only play in PogChamps, we've also seen him cast PogChamps.
Yep.
We've seen him cast. He is an absolutely amazing streamer, and he's put in the work for chess as well. So I'm definitely excited to see his gameplay this time. And I do actually want to point out that there's some people, including maybe Sir Dosh is going to be a very strong player. Not saying that Ludwig doesn't have very good chances of winning PogChamps. I have seen Sir Dosh spend hours and hours and hours playing chess, and I think he's personally said he was aiming to go for like 1500
Wow.
by the 7th of February. And when does PogChamps 3 start exactly?
I think the 14th, if I'm not mistaken. So around Valentine's Day.
All right, around Valentine's Day. Awesome. None of us have anything to do on Valentine's Day anyways. Perfect. So yeah, I mean, there's people with very big aspirations in PogChamps, and I'm just so excited about it.
Yeah, now I won't name any names or anything, but some people are working offline. So of course, people are streaming a lot of chess. But I know from firsthand experience, some people may be working really hard behind the scenes to try to win PogChamp. So there are people putting in their work. It's a lot of fun to see all these people play. But we're here today for this matchup between Eric Rosen and Sagar Shah. I don't know who's going to win this match. At first, I said Eric when we did pre-match predictions, but the last couple of games, Sagar has been finding his form. He's looked excellent. Has really technical precision, and he doesn't give Eric chances when he gets the upper hand. So Eric needs to find his footing here. We have liftoff in this next game, and knight f3. Are we going to get this same line again, Nemo?
We might. Oh, I think we're gonna get it. I think we're getting it, guys. It is 3+1 this time. Eric is thinking a little bit here, so maybe he doesn't want to repeat it. I mean, if I was him, I definitely would not want to repeat it. However, that choice is mine, not his. So I think we're gonna get it.
Yeah, the problem is if this is your normal repertoire, queen a4. Okay. So we have a different line, but if this is your normal repertoire, it's hard to say on the fly, I'm going away from this. And he's playing a6. If queen takes c4, b5, this way the bishop gets to compete with white's bishop. So it's not a one-way street. Now, both bishops are happy in the long diagonal, but the concession is this is a backward c pawn. So if I can keep your pawn from getting to c5, white can claim a long-term advantage. So black is going to be looking to get this pawn break.
Yeah, I mean, this is also, I think, the main line of the catalog.
Wait, no, that was wrong. That was a blunder. You do not allow this. The bishop's under attack.
No, it's knight takes f6, right?
Yes.
Oh, God. Okay, yes. Now that the light square bishop has been traded off, okay, so first of all, you don't really want to take on a6 because that bishop will get trapped. But that light square bishop is now going to be an absolute monster. And we already saw how much of a monster the light square bishop was when black actually had a light square bishop, right? In the previous two times they've played the Catalan already. Now that there's no more light square bishop for black, that bishop has no contest, and it's going to be a pain for Eric to deal with for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and if you're Sagar, what you want to do is leave black with his bishop on g5. It doesn't necessarily mean that you trade knights. You could trade these two pieces, the knight and the bishop, but as long as you leave black with this dark square bishop that doesn't have targets, you're pretty happy. So I would just play knight d2, maybe knight to e4 or knight f3, one of these squares here, get my knight over the king side. And I think that white has the most promising position out of the opening we've seen all match.
Yep. This is definitely something else. I mean, we're gonna see the knight possibly travel to c5. It doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily have to go there, but that is a very, very nice square for it. I mean, it is an outpost. Outpost is just, a square where no pawn can attack it.
Right. So he did step one, knight e4, but now he goes step two, knight c5. I was waiting for it, but he might have been thinking, do I really want to allow that bishop to capture? The answer is yes, because the c7 pawn is so weak. You put a rook on c1. Do not trade queens on d6. Don't do that. Do not trade queens here. That fixes black's pawn structure. You are playing against this pawn on c7.
Mm-hmm. This is, we can see either rook c1 or queen c2. I kind of like queen c2 more maybe here because if you swap off pieces, it tends to ease up the pressure for your opponent, right? Because oh, well, we saw rook c1. Okay, well, it's fine. I would have personally preferred to play queen c2 after second thought, but nothing wrong with rook c1, of course. I mean, it's a very natural move to make. It's just now like if queen takes c5, d takes c5, then you no longer have the pressure on the c file. I kind of missed my pressure on the c file, and now there's even less pressure on the c file because you don't have a c7 pawn anymore. So
Right.
I think this has traded a little bit more into equality. That is not to say that white's position is, you know, it's not good anymore, but it's just probably queen c2 was the more accurate choice from Sagar.
Yeah, this knight c4, there was like a tactic which seemed unexpected, and it was a really good move by Eric, a good find. But white can still play rook c2, rook c1. There's only one open file, and white can be first to it. So I think that white will remain better. But you're right; it doesn't feel quite as powerful as it. Oh, I like this too because if you play a rook to c8, I can take and try to get my bishop to b7, where I'll hit a rook and hit the pawn. So bishop f3 was actually quite clever.
Mm-hmm.
And this rook would, of course, love to land on the c6 square.
Yeah. Well, rook fca is going to be. Oh,
Yeah, the problem was with the bishop b7 lines, where you could
right.
you could play rook f to c8 to show very quickly, but if you take back with the rook here, there's bishop b7, which hits the rook and the pawn. Maybe this is okay, but it's hard to play this in a blitz game for sure.
I do think that rook c2, and then I mean I'm not gonna try to contest the line, but rook c2, it's also a very interesting endgame where you're just down a pawn, but you can probably hold it because the rook's tied down to a2. But of course, it's very difficult to spot these ideas on the fly. So
Yeah, I'd say the hardest part is just evaluating. Like, I know that I have
Mhm.
compensation there. My rook is active, your rook is passive, but is it enough? And in a split second, when your white is down to a minute, black has just a minute and 15 seconds, you don't assess it necessarily, even if you see it.
yeah, it's always easier to go for the lines that where you're just not down material, right? I think as humans, or as the way we've learned chess, it's always easier to just be like, I'm not down material, therefore I'm fine.
Right.
Um, Nothing wrong with that mindset, of course, but there's a lot of things outside of material in chess that impacts the game.
Absolutely. And I'm worried about, speaking of material, this pawn on d4, it's in a dark square. It can be attacked. And this is the type of position where a knight can actually be better than a bishop as, okay, I play e5 without even a second thought and try to use the dark squares.
Mm-hmm.
This could be a problem for Sagar. I love the way the opening went. He had a big advantage, but now things are turning in Eric's favor.
Yeah, I mean e5 here. I would still say that d5 is a pass pawn. However, we all know that knights are the best blockaders of pass pawns because it just sits there, yet it still controls all the squares around it. So Eric definitely has a pretty solid chance of actually maybe turning this endgame around in his favor. I mean, the eval bar does say it's still fairly equal,
Yeah.
but a few raw moves from two raw moves from Sagar, and all of a sudden it could be completely in Black's favor.
And if you get too aggressive for black, let's say move like f5, which is probably good in this position, you have to watch out for your other pawn. Right? The pawn chain is only as strong as the base pawn. So this is a pawn chain here, and the f7 pawn is defended. But as soon as you make a move like f5, your pawn on g6 could be weak. But king c8, the engine did not like that move one bit. So I'm wondering, it seems like both players are missing something, but it's hard to figure out what because the position is pretty locked up, not too many pieces remaining. Oh, okay, rook a8 check. You have to, because otherwise your rook gets trapped.
And don't forget, they both only have 20 seconds, so we can't really, expect to see
Perfection? No.
yeah, perfection. Definitely no perfection here.
But rook a8. Wait, knight
Wait,
c8.
knight c8?
Yeah, that rook is in danger.
That is one very unhappy looking rook.
Yeah, you can play d6 at some moment to keep it safe, but you lose a pawn. Maybe g4, but takes his f5 to block the diagonal. Uh-oh.
It's gonna be hard to find this with 6 seconds on the clock.
You just got to go a4. It's a reasonable move. We're going to try to go a5 to kick this rook away. And look at Eric down to 11 seconds. He doesn't want to take on a4 because bishop e2 at the end. So take on b5, actually. That frees the rook. He made the move I said, which is a blunder. Now the rook's trapped. King b7.
Oh, no.
A takes b5 was needed.
And I mean, with that little time on the clock, yeah, it's gonna be difficult to find these accurate moves. I mean, it's hard enough finding them in classical time controls. It's gonna be near impossible to find them in bullet time controls. So
yeah, and that move at the end there, a5 attacking the rook had a clear purpose, but if he was able to take on b5, the rook would have been free. And now we see Eric play c4, going away from this e4, bishop c4, queen e2 stuff that we kept questioning. Oh, we're getting a sharper game from the very beginning. So black gets this f5, e4 setup, but whenever you push your pawns like this, the light squares become more vulnerable. But for now, it's just the opening stage. Neither side is unhappy.
This is very exciting. I mean, Sagar seems to be quite well versed in this opening. Otherwise, there'll be very little reason to push up your pawns like this as black. So I'm going to assume he knows what he's doing. I'm also going to assume that Eric knows what he's doing. So this is going to become a very interesting fight. I really like these more aggressive openings. It really leads to a lot of excitement on the board.
Yes. And look at this h4, making intentions clear. I'm going to attack your king. But what I don't like for white is these doubled pawns. It's not the biggest deal right now, but I feel, and you can disagree with me, it's just maybe a personal opinion, that in blitz, having double pawns is really hard to deal with because you worry, am I going to lose the pawn? For instance, pawn c4. Can black play b6, c5, bishop a6 very quickly and go after the pawn? These are the worries that I have, at least, and why I try to give my opponents double pawns, even if it causes me to give up the bishop pair.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely would imagine that this is just not the best position. I not that there's anything wrong with white's position, but it just feels like, where's your king gonna go? It feels very unnatural to play this position as white in blitz. Because you don't have easy plans, right? I mean, your one plan would be to possibly attack on the king side, but at the same time, your king's still in the middle of the board. Your dark squared bishop is always going to suffer, and this is okay, well, c5 is a very good idea. Just trying to open up that dark squared bishop.
Right, but at the cost of the pawn structure. You may undouble your pawns because you may continue taking here, but then you have the split pawns on the queen side. So you're going to have a long-term issue regardless. Queen e7 is also an interesting move, saying you can't move your pawn. Your pawn is pinned to the bishop. So you can trade queens. You can play queen e7. I would keep the queens on the board because white's king is in the center.
Yeah, this is just one of those positions where I'm like, king's in the center. Let's go queen e7. Let's maybe play rook d8. I mean, at this point, even if you potentially, well, not that black's at risk of losing a pawn or anything, but you're willing to give up a little bit more just to keep white's king in the center, and white is still at least 2 moves from castling on the king side. At this point, I don't even know if he wants to castle on the king side because he's made the very aggressive choice of playing h4, but that pawn will become a weakness if the rook ever moves from h1.
Right. So Sagar thinking, but this is, I don't think you can afford to spend this much time here. He is now down over half a minute, and he plays queen e7. Okay. But if he was really feeling the position, he would just make that move queen e7. Just you know what, the king's in the center, we're talking about, play this move. And I'm not saying that's how you should play chess generally. When you're playing classical time controls, don't just rush a move. Of course not. But in this format, you're playing 3-minute blitz. You just got to go sometimes.
For sure, for sure. I mean, intuition is everything in blitz, right? You don't have the time to sit down, evaluate, calculate, and I mean, we've talked about how Sagar hasn't really played that much online chess, but he is still very, very well known, and he is around chess all the time. So at least some of these ideas are coming to him.
For sure. And queen e5, look, he did exactly. We're talking about queen d4. Great response by Eric. Rook e8, you do not take that queen and help white's pawn structure. So rook e8 saves the rook from danger on the diagonal. It protects the queen. That's a move that you can comfortably play pretty quickly. He did so in, 10 seconds. He can't afford to spend 10 seconds. Look at the clock right now. He's under a minute. Eric is a minute and a half. So these little moments, they really add up. And I'm not trying to be overly critical. Of course not. Sagar is a fantastic player, and he just isn't used to playing in these quick time controls. And that's what could hurt him. But his position is absolutely fine.
For sure. I think here maybe we just go knight c6, yeah?
I like it.
Just kick the queen away, yeah. I mean, you definitely don't want to play queen takes e5 because knight takes e5, and that's just going to be a very, very strong knight on a very nice square.
Yes.
So,
yeah, no, this is... Look at White's pieces. The bishop on a3. It's not really doing
everything
all that much.
Feels so scattered. Like, I got, like, my rooks are not connected. We know we like the rook bros. My king's still in the middle of the board. My knight's chilling on f4. I mean, that knight's actually fine, but, like, none of the pieces are doing something for the position. Like, they're just there, you know? We don't have a clear plan for White. So it must be quite difficult to play this. Okay, well, now we have knight g6.
There's cheese. Watch out for the cheese. If you take the queen on d4, you get mated. I'm sure that very quickly. Bring up the analysis board here. Because knight takes d4, knight g6 check, takes. The bishop covers the escape square on g8. The rook will take the knight when it moves, and then that is checkmate. So there is cheese. Do not fall for it. He doesn't. He's still thinking queen takes f4 is a good move because there it is, and take the queen now. But he spent so much time. He spent so much time to get here, but he's much better because of the light square control. The knight is way better than the dark square bishop.
I mean, this is one of those endgames where I think Sagar can actually like play pretty well with 12 seconds. The ideas become very simple, right? I mean, if the light square bishop comes out, he was just, okay, well, that was a good choice. But the moment the light square bishop comes out, that knight's going to become a monster on d5.
Wonderful
and
square.
There will be nothing that White can do about that knight. So, I mean, Black now has a very clear plan.
And rook d1 played. The a2 pawn can be captured, but I like what Sagar does. He's like, I'm not concerning myself with pawns over there. Can I really get away with it? Let's just play simple moves that look strong. The knight d5 is also good because this bishop will never get the full length of the diagonal. Move your rook. Rook b8. Just do it. Let's go. Now you can even play b5, b4 if you want. The position's getting better and better. This pawn's under attack. Opposite color bishop endgame. Simplistic, but good for Black.
Yeah.
And look, actually, Eric's down to 15 seconds himself. I didn't even notice that.
Ooh.
Rook b2.
Yep, clock moment.
Oh, knight c3 first. That's great. Rook b2 now. Bring your rook in.
Oh my god, this position is so... Oh, now
Bishop
we
c4.
castle.
Bishop c4, knight e2 check maybe?
Or maybe knight e2 checks. Okay, well, both are very similar.
Yeah, so you can play knight e2 take on d4, put a bishop on d3. It's good for Black, but the clock, 3 seconds.
E3? I would have preferred e3, but yeah.
Oh, e3 would have been sick.
Yeah.
E3 would have been sick. Okay, bishop d3. I would just do it. 2 seconds. You gotta move. You gotta move. Come on. Oh my gosh, you barely got the move off.
The 0.6 second move.
And he's gonna lose. I lost some time. Oh, look at him. Oh, he sits back just... Oh, he can't believe it. He played so well there, too. Oh, that's just heartbreaking because that would have evened up the match, and now it's a 2-game lead for Eric Rosen.
It's so hard to play with a +1 increment. I mean, the +1 increment exists, but, you know, you still got to pretty much pre-move, right? Every single move.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, my God.
That was an intense game. I mean, Sagar is on form. He is actually on form, and that is very, very exciting to see. I mean, played an amazing game, which is very unfortunate that the time is part of the game, and you do have to worry about the clock sometimes.
Yeah, that game was about, 5 seconds away from evening the score, and Sagar just took a moment there. We saw him, he was frustrated. He calmed himself down. He's clearly in this match, right? This match is not away from him. But what we have been seeing is as we creep closer to the bullet portion, that's where Eric will probably be at his best, and Sagar has looked a bit shaky. However, there's several more games left in the 3+1. This is Sagar's time to make the most of it. And I mean, his position right now, solid. Right, we have a typical c4, d4 setup where you control a lot of the board, but it's closed. The position is really locked up right now.
Yeah, this is one of those. It reminds me a little bit of the Coley, which is what I play. And it's very, very solid, and it doesn't really give White an advantage, but it's definitely not a bad choice for blitz because you have very, very simple moves to make. You know, You go for the c4 plan, you start putting your rooks towards the center of the board, you maybe look at a d5 pawn break. The ideas are not difficult, and that's sometimes all you really need in blitz because time exists, and we found that out from the last game.
We're about to get into a philosophical discussion if time exists or if it's just a construct. But we see that Sagar didn't need to waste any more time to jump his knight in the center. But I don't like this because after pawn takes bishop c5, now both of black's bishops are going to be excellent. The rook on d8 is well placed. So I think that knight jump was really a problem for him. Now he's going to have to fend off the initiative that Eric has.
Chat is like time exists, forehead. True.
Oh, well, I love, riling up the chat a little bit there. So let's see what's going on. Bishop d4, maybe. I could see a queen sack happening. I would think about sacrificing my queen for the bishop and the rook, but instead...
Oof, that's something I would never do, but yeah, for sure.
Well, look at the resulting position, right? Now black is just marching forward. So maybe objectively it still was good for black, but this, at least practically speaking, doesn't look very fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I like this position. As white, it just feels like everything's on the back rank. We actually don't have a piece above the second rank. That's beautiful.
No. And you have that one pawn that's about to be lost, so that's not going to be very good news. Yeah, I think
what went wrong in this game? It was going fine, and then it just wasn't going fine in like 2 moves.
Yeah, that 95 move, it opened the position up, but in favorable terms for black. And black's pieces were situated perfectly for it. So Sagar needed to time it better. Speaking of time, he needed to put a rook on d1 and be able to counter. Instead, he's in this position where he's losing on time. He's losing his pawn e5, it looks like. So he's in some big trouble.
Yeah. He is taking his time to think in this position. I mean, it's hard. I don't think the choice of playing bishop takes d4 is the hard one. I think it's the realization that your position is not amazing. That's the hard thing to come to terms with. And realizing you have to either play queen to g5 or queen e3 to protect your e-pawn. And queen e3 just looks absolutely awful because queen takes e3 and he has to play it because otherwise you just lose that. And it's really more like putting a bandage on a bleeding wound because, like, man, those pawns are... You talked about last game how double pawns are just so unfun in blitz games because you're always worried about losing them. And these are quite possibly one of the worst double pawns I've ever seen.
Yeah, the only good news, and this is a small bit of good news, is that you can't actually attack them. The pawn e5, it's isolated, it's weak, but how do you attack it? You need your rook somehow to get to the 5th rank, which isn't quite possible. So I like what Sagar has done. Well, all things considered, his position has been bad, but the last bunch of moves have been beneficial for him.
The rook's probably going to come to d2. I mean, the rook on a1 is tied down to the 8.
Oh, look at that tactical find. No, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, wait, how do I deal with rook d2? But rook d1 is so clever because once the rook takes, the bishop will capture back, and then the rook trade is offered, and the a2 pawn is defended. So this might be Sagar getting out of the woods because this e5 pawn, it's weak, but it can't be attacked, especially not in a king and pawn ending.
Yeah. I think after rook takes d1, rook takes d1, bishop takes d... I mean, rook takes d1, bishop takes d1, sorry. We have maybe rook c1, just trying to keep up the pressure, but Sagar is like slowly easing his way out of this, and we can see Eric is like, biting his lip, trying to think of ways to keep his advantage up, but this is actually not that bad anymore.
Right.
Not too bad for white. I mean, black is still a little bit better, but...
Yeah, if you trade rooks, you're not going to win the game because the pawns are hard to get to. So rook c3 makes sense, but king d2 now, your king just comes right to the center, attacks, protects the pawn. If rook d3, just king over to e2, and you keep your pawns defended. So I really believe that Sagar has made his way out of this. I think his position is actually quite comfortable. And the one big problem I would say is these pawns are all in light squares. So if you're not careful, at some moment, some kind of bishop b1, bishop a2, and just cutting down the pawns could happen. But he plays rook e2 instead, which feels more passive.
Yep, and here we're gonna see that king to e7. I mean, it's just gonna become an endgame, which will probably lead to a draw. But I mean, time is the one thing I'm gonna be looking at now. We know Sagar just lost on time in the previous game, so he's probably well aware of his own clock.
I would play f6. I would say, your pawns look ugly, but I want to get my king up into the center of the board. So f6 is what I'm looking at in the near future for Eric.
Okay, I do think they're gonna go for the draw here, though. They're gonna go for the repetition here.
You think so? Eric's up so much time. I would play on if I were him.
I would play on as Eric too, honestly. But Eric has maybe now we'll see something like maybe b5.
Yeah, I like that too. Just trying to advance your pawns. Yep.
b5, and then if c takes c takes b5, c takes b5, then you actually have rook d5, and we can actually go for the e5 pawn.
That's a great point. So g4. Well, I like this too because you're creating another advanced pawn, which could backfire for what? Look at this. Rook h8 coming soon. Watch out for your h3 pawn. This looks very dangerous, and you have 13 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the bishop takes g6 move.
Oh, that's a good move. Rook h2. You can at least save your pawn. And this e5 pawn is somehow still here. Like it should have been captured, it feels like 8 moves ago somehow, but you could never get to it. So king up. Bring the king up. Yes, king d2 is good. King d3, king e4. Okay, king c3. Nice.
Oh, the rook is coming in.
Oh, great move, h5. Take back with the pawn, and then just try to trade the pawns. And then the rook might even get around if you're not careful. This rook can come to h8 and to b8. So don't drop your a2 pawn.
Oof.
Okay. Wait. Now he's dropping e3 and e5, or is the rook come back to?
I don't like this way of defending.
It's so passive. It's so passive. King c3. Give up your a2 pawn.
One thing about rook endgames. What's the first thing you learn about rook endgames, Robert?
You don't want to be defending passively.
Yes.
No, you don't. You want your pieces active. King d3 here. He actually might hold on. King c3 back. The king is just going back and forth. Rook h8. Go rook h8. Go bring that rook around. Honestly, white could somehow win this game if black's not careful.
I mean, he's been playing very active. Maybe we might see, king to d7 and rook d8, then king c7.
Then rook f8. You just keep attacking. Keep going. Rook 8. Okay, that's also good.
Okay, rook f8 now.
Yep. Now king d4. Do not allow the black king to c5.
Oh, no, he okay, well, black didn't play king to c5.
King d4. Okay, don't.
Okay, king c5.
No.
Oh, no, king c5. Yeah, that's the issue. Now rook takes e5. Oh, okay, well, I mean,
he'll do it soon. Your king b4 now.
Oh, he's not taking on e5. I mean, I guess he really doesn't want to give up the f pawn.
Oh no.
No.
And Sagar's just like, I've had enough of this right now. But it's fortunate for him that it's a time for a break. They're midway through the 3+1 portion. But for Sagar, you got to feel for the guy. He's playing really well. And credit to Eric, because he kept up the pressure throughout that whole game. Sure, there were some moments where maybe there was something to be done, but he couldn't break through. He realized, I'm not winning your pawns, but he kept creating weaknesses in Sagar's position, and he didn't have enough time to hold on.
For sure. I mean, part of chess is just annoying your opponent enough until they eventually aren't able to keep protecting everything, right? So, Eric played a very, very good game, and Sagar almost held on all the way to the very end. But sadly, time is not on his side today. So,
yeah, well, it is time for us to go to our break. We'll be back soon with more action from this Sagar Shah, Eric Rosen, I'm Not Jim Speechless Championship match, brought to you by Chess.com.
right, and we are back for the second half of the 3+1. Um, and we just saw some very, very, very exciting games between Eric and Sagar. And all I want to say is maybe after this break, maybe Sagar has like freshened up his mind. He's gonna be very aware of his time because he's had pretty decent positions the last couple of games. Unfortunately, he has lost to the clock, and that is a very, very unfortunate way in a way to sort of like lose in a blitz. But of course, we all know that's part of the game, right? So, however, we are expecting to see some pretty exciting things.
Yeah,
What are you
it's
What are you predicting?
well, it's just very difficult to know like how much time to use in certain decisions because Sagar is playing great chess, as is Eric, but Sagar's spending too much time, and at some moments you just need to be practical. That a good move played quickly is better than the best move played slowly, and we say this every single time. It's hard to internalize that, especially as somebody who studies the game their entire life. You're like, wait, I want to always find the best move, but when the situation arises where you don't have time remaining to find the best moves when you're winning or when you have a good position, then you're like, okay, now I just need to play quickly. And sometimes not overthinking is producing the best chess.
For sure, definitely. I hear you there. I mean, honestly, in terms of playing blitz and like these longer time control strategies, all of these things, classical, making the switch from classical or even rapid into faster time controls is quite difficult because as chess players, right? We, like Robert said, we all want to find really good moves, but sometimes you realize, hey, sometimes I just need to find a move, and
Yeah.
that's maybe what Sagar needs to realize in this moment. I have no doubt at all that his intuition is amazing. Maybe he just needs to trust himself a little bit more.
Yes. Yeah. We're about to see the next game get underway, and we'll see how he handles this because he is down 3 points. He's still in this match, and I hope he doesn't just start sacrificing pieces for no reason, but he does need to get winning. That's for sure.
Get winning. I like the way you put it.
So what else can be said? He needs to win games because he's down 3, and Eric is the favorite in the bullet portion. But Sagar is playing very well, so he has his chances.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. Um,
And we'll get the games in just a moment now. And here we go. D4
right.
played by Eric. So we saw Eric playing C4, and now he plays D4. We also played E4 earlier, and we're getting a London system.
Of course. Now, if you don't know about Eric's London, then you've probably been living under a rock. This is definitely one of Eric's, favorite lines. It's something that you've definitely seen before, played by him. Okay, this is actually a line I've not seen before. I've never seen when London where the queen gets onto c5.
Yeah, there are some lines where the queen gets here, but usually it's when white wins material because it's like a known blunder line. It's not this. This is perfectly good for black. Look at this. You've established your center with d5 and e5. Your queen is absolutely fine being on the c5 square, and you can castle. But if you castle kingside, you lost the benefit of doubling your pawns, which is the open file. So I think Sagar's handled this perfectly.
I might actually start playing this line myself as black. This is looking quite exciting.
It looks great. I mean, there's nothing to complain about in this position. And
For sure.
you can just develop your knight to c6 or to d7. I'm not sure which is better square. He chooses d7, I guess, to give the queen more returning space to use the c file potentially at some point. So I just prefer black's position.
Very, very comfortable stuff. This is we're gonna see the rook come out. I actually prefer maybe rook to d8 just because I kind of want to push d4 at some point. However, I don't even know if my idea is gonna work.
And I think in part knight d7. I now that I'm thinking about it, the knight on c6 would be dominated by the pawn on c3. The knight on d7 has a future on the c5 square if the queen is to move out the way.
All right, we do see white just relieving a little bit of pressure in the center with e takes d5. I'm liking knight takes d5 here, or maybe even queen takes d5.
I like queen takes d5 just because I don't want to give up control over the e4 square. I know that it won't amount to anything, but just that thought of the queen and the bishop lining up, trying to checkmate my king, makes me feel a little bit more cozy. But I also understand that there's bishop c4 at some moment, so there are going to be tactics.
All right, knight e4. This position is just so unfamiliar to me. I'm like trying to wrap my head around how everything in this position is going to work out. Maybe we play. knight takes e4 feels like an easier way out, where you're just like, let's just start swapping pieces, go into that endgame. But I'm not sure if black actually maybe wants to keep up the pressure in this position, because I definitely feel like black is the one with a little bit of an edge, you know? He's the one with a little bit more initiative.
Yeah, I think this pawn on e5 is the best situation, and I see the evaluation bar go crazy, and then it goes back down. So there might be something available here. There's some maybe tactics involving a knight takes e5. So if you take on f6 first, that's probably what it was. And I'm only helped by I see the eval bar going up and down. Otherwise, I mean, rook ad1 looks like a perfectly normal move, and that's the biggest difference. When the players are playing, they have no idea if they miss something unless they spot it, but they're not informed that there's something available to them. The biggest difference between seeing an eval bar or knowing it's a tactic is, well, you have to know it's a tactic before you can play it.
Definitely. And here, I mean, we're just going for solid gameplay. I kind of like this choice coming from, this opening choice from Sagar has been absolutely great. He is, however, still using quite a lot of time, but I mean, Eric's using a lot of time here too. Just white doesn't feel like white has a lot to do in this position. So that's probably where all the thought is going into. I mean, how do you improve your position here, right?
I do like that last move, but black can just move this knight out the way. Knight c5 was the choice, hitting the bishop, protecting the pawn on b7. And I don't know, I feel like both sides can be comfortable in this position. Bishop b5 looks reasonable. This rook can come to, say, d8 or something like that. I'm not sure who's better.
Yeah, rook ACA here, maybe.
Sorry, I just had that cough there. Rook c8 is possible for sure. And yeah, that makes sense. You overprotect the knight, and if this pawn ever thinks about going to b4, your rook's on a good line with his pawn on c3. So rook c8 definitely makes sense to me.
Yeah, and oh wait,
e4.
this is very aggressive.
That's a pin. So if you move the knight, you lose the rook. But perhaps there's like a counter pin with queen c4. The e4 pawn captures on f3. You lose your knight, your bishop on g4 rather. So,
or you could also play b4, which attacks the knight that's defending the e pawn.
Yes, that's true. That knight is very important. Protecting main.
Because you can't actually take on f3, right? Since, like Robert said, the rook on e8. Yeah.
Nice. I honestly wasn't even looking at the rook on e8, but now that you suggested and then the move happened, I'm like, oh, e takes f3 isn't a threat.
Which it's means a pin. Yeah, it's a pin.
Yeah, that means e4 was never a good move to begin with.
Yes.
For sure.
This is a lost pawn for black, sadly.
Yeah, I think you just have to accept that fact. You can't keep spending time, though. Look at this. You're losing a pawn and you're down 35 seconds. So just play knight d7 or something. I'm not sure if that's good, but you play the move and hope that you can, gather enough strength in the position to fend off white's position.
Oh, what?
I'm looking at Sagar's face. Nope, he shakes his head. He didn't see it was hanging. He's like me. Don't play like me. Don't do that. Yeah, he just didn't see the rook was hanging.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it's not very obvious. The queen is on a very odd square on b5. I mean, you would hardly ever have a pinned pawn on e4, right? Like this is probably one of the first times I've ever seen a pinned pawn on e4. But ooh, that was a puzzle rush moment there for sure.
It was, and it's a full extra rook. If you're Sagar, you need to resign. You need to get more games going.
Yeah, you need to. This is one of the strategies as well for these kind of formats when there's still 15 minutes left in the bank for games. You got to play as many games as you can, or at least try to get those games in.
That's true, and he's back to his bishop g2 lines, getting the bishop on the longest diagonal. And Eric spending a little time before playing knight f6. So let's see if Sagar can. Whoa, b5, stopping any kind of c4. This is still it's a true opening. Players like Vladimir Kramnik played it, so you know that it's legit.
I play this line as black. I like it a lot. You basically say no to the Catalan.
You say no c4 for you, but at the same time, by extending your pawn so far, they could become targets. But I do think that this is a good strategy by Eric because Sagar's been way too comfortable in those Catalan lines.
For sure.
And c3, this is a good way of playing against this. a5, protecting the pawn. Now you can just play knight to d2. He takes on b4, which gives you the outside pass pawn. And if you can get your knight to b3, you stop black from playing c5. Black would like to play c5 so you don't have this backward pawn.
I really like your explanations of all these openings. I'm learning too, just like I hope everybody in chat is learning how to play all these different openings. Honestly, Eric's openings have been maybe apart from his e4 bishop c4 queen e2 line, but that one is a little bit unique. All of these other openings I feel like have been super instructional today.
Yeah, and I would say that Sagar's handling it very well for the most part. I think he's been doing like he's holding his own in the opening stage, but he just spends too much time in critical moments, and that's what's holding him back. And Bishop
Hmm.
C4 closing down the C file, it makes sense. I can just move. Oh, I can't go knight to D2. I drop my E2 pawn, so I should not do that. Maybe just rook E1
Okay,
to
natural.
defend the pawn. I thought the rook could also go to C1 to try to say if I kick your bishop, down goes this C7 pawn. But either way, we're getting a tactical position now.
I actually really like bishop takes b3 before knight e4 because then I can just get c5 in. So now I'm wondering if like I think it's very important to keep control of that c5 square, right? I mean, c5 is always a very thematic pawn push in the Catalan, even if this is not quite the Catalan. Um,
Yes. Yeah. No, you're not getting it right.
mhm.
This bishop on G2 is going to open up. This knight's under attack. This bishop's under attack, and now knight takes B3, of course.
Ooh, I
And
would have preferred knight takes d2.
yeah, you didn't want to give up that bishop. And
Mm. And now, like, especially because black is never, ever, ever going to get c5 in as long as white, kind of just plays rook e to c1, knight c5 maybe.
mhm.
And that c pawn is looking really weak. Of course, be careful. You don't want to take c7 here because your queen will be trapped after rook to c8. So,
I'm going to show that really quickly because it looks like a free pawn to most. But where does that queen go? And no squares are available to your queen over here, so the queen is trapped in the
mm-hmm.
spot. That's kind of crazy, honestly.
Yeah.
Knight c5 played. The point I think is that white will play for e4. If you take on c5, I can just take back, but there is a moment I can play e4 and help my bishop. And alternatively, I can say, wait, I have an outside pass pawn, and I don't mind pushing it up the board.
Yeah. This is looking pretty comfy for white, honestly. This did not go very much in the favor of Eric. And I also think that this is just one of those positions that nobody really wants to play as black because you're out here defending, you only got 1 minute on clock. Defending is always more difficult than attacking in blitz games just because you don't have natural moves to make. You have to always think about what your opponent's doing. You're always trying to respond to them. So that's very difficult.
Yeah, knight c4, that makes sense. You say you don't want to sit passively, you don't want to defend. But here, it's what I was hinting at earlier. E4, the knight needs the defense of the pawn, so you're just trying to take on d5 and remove the guard.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess he'll play. He can still play e4. Like he can just go and try to open up this bishop. The bishop can also reroute to f1 eventually to use the new diagonal. But instead, we see b3, which is also a very good move.
Yep. Here, 95. We're going to Eric should be trying to get that c5 pawn push at some point, and we all have the saying that knights on the rim are a little bit pepega. So that knight is not happy on a5. We have also talked about, however, about how knights are the best blockaders. However, you kind of have to combine those two and be like, would I rather have my knight on the rim while blockading, or should it just be somewhere more active, right? And this is one of those moments where I wanted to be a little bit more active.
Right. But you do make a great point about the knight blockade. It's a great blockader because it still attacks over the pieces. So
Mm-hmm.
the b3 pawn needs to have an eye kept on it. And right now, Eric, he's down on time. He's trying to figure out where does the queen trade want to happen. He didn't want to take on c5 to allow the rook in. And for white, is it time for e4? Is it finally time to do it? No, e3, which does make sense, though. He's trying to keep the position a bit tamer. And now that the king is on e7, I would try to keep the queens on the board if I'm white. I would bring my queen back. That king is in the center here, and it's not going to get checkmated, but it could fall victim to some kind of attack.
Yes, for sure. I think these pawn pushes we're just trying to get all the moves out, before somebody has to commit to something. What is it called when in chess when you just don't want to make your position worse? So you're just trying to like find those moves that are like potentially beneficial, don't really do much, but most importantly, they just don't make your position worse.
Yeah, just those kind of waiting moves.
Yeah, the
Just,
waiting moves, exactly.
and those are hard to do. And I think black is taking over all of a sudden because you can play for e5, you can play for knight b7, pawn c5. You finally get that pawn break. And it's not that black is that much better. You still have to be careful, but the position is favoring black, the trajectory here. And look at the time, it's about even.
It's getting a little better for black. And we get the c5 that we wanted.
Yes. And the
I
thing
like
is,
this a lot.
you can't take on d4. So there is a pin to look out for with this rook on c8. So you need to figure out how to move forward here for black. Maybe it's rook c7, rook c8, but I guess not because the pawn was captured immediately.
Yeah, I mean, here for sure, there's going to be, a bit of like key f1, move the king over. Oh, that knight's going to look absolutely amazing on c3. I just realized that.
Yeah, this is not pleasant. But the thing about the knight c3 is then the b3 pawn feels safer because now it can't be attacked. So even though that's a great knight, you're not attacking the pawn anymore. So move this bishop away. I think bishop f3. I don't even want to give that up anymore. And then later in the game, I'll think about pushing this a pawn. But of course, don't allow e4 check. Yeah. Oh, I don't think I love that because it seems committal. Now you're going to have a harder time pushing d4, but maybe this king comes to e5. You push for d4 anyway. And look at how quickly Eric has taken over this game.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of pawns on light squares. So pawns on light squares, when your opponent has a light square bishop, can go in two ways. You either completely shut down the light square bishop because all the pawns are on that color, or the light square pawns become really, really weak because they're on the color of light square bishop,
Right. Yep.
So this is one of those moments when, I mean, the position is objectively speaking very equal, but I do think white has to be fairly careful. Oh, time, clock. There was rook d5 there.
Rook d5 would have been nice, but bishop is, you made a good point. These pawns, watch out, bishop f7, give me one free move and I get your pawn. So king can go back to f6, but look at white, keeping the opposition. Do not take that knight. You hang your rook. Oh, he lost in time! He lost in time!
No!
Oh, he was fending it off so well.
It was going so, it was a draw, and this is not the first time. This has happened. Oh no, Sagar. Oh no.
Yeah, time is not his friend. It's not on his side. And these games have been very close. But
sure.
Eric has been moving more quickly, and he's been finding the resources necessary in the ensuing time triple. So well done by Eric. And for Sagar, that's the kind of day it is. Maybe with some more practice, he'll be able to speed up and manage his time better. But right now, it's been all Eric Rosen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Eric is definitely popping off today with his control of the position, really. I mean, Sagar was having these great positions, but he wasn't able to convert them. And that part is very unfortunate, especially when you're playing so well. But I mean, I just hope that this motivates Sagar. He's a very, very strong player. And we've talked about how Eric plays every day. Sagar, on the other hand, we're a little less familiar with his history of online blitz chess. So honestly, he's doing absolutely amazing.
Yes, and you can tell that he doesn't play much, given that his rating is 2250.
Oh, he's way underrated. He's so underrated.
For sure. And what's happened, though, it was 3.5. In the last 5 games, Eric has won all of them in the 3+1 time control because you start with less time. When Sagar goes in those deeper things, he doesn't have time remaining to figure out the rest. And that's been the tale of the match. Right now, again, I like Sagar's position with the black pieces. He's got his knight on d4, hitting this pawn on e2. That's already a really devastating tactic. You can put c6. You can play bishop h3. You have a nice bishop on g7. The opening has gone Sagar's way.
I think black is going to enjoy this position. However, he is down 30 seconds. Oh no.
Yeah, foreshadowing what we could see happening.
Oh, yeah. It's a very good position for black. I mean, you have everything set up for yourself. Bishop takes g2 necessary here. Yep.
Knight e6, f5, things like that.
f4, the thematic moves we see.
I like black's position. There's also some ideas with knight g5 and queen h3 if you're not careful. So already Eric should be on the lookout for that and find a way to counter it. The thing is f5, though, it's so easy to play. Like F5, knight G5 ideas.
He's spending a
F4.
lot of time on moves that I feel like intuitively he could be playing a lot faster. But I think what he's doing subconsciously is double checking and double checking, you know. But it's people who have played a lot of blitz would just instantly go because that's kind of just what you do.
And that's what happens when you don't play regularly. I mean, I play some blitz online, of course, but when I play in classical tournaments, longer time, I spent so much time thinking, oh, if I move that pawn, is that going to create a permanent weakness for me, or is that just a good move? And then, as you said, you're triple checking the position
Mm-hmm.
and spending too much time. So F5, great move. He is now ahead on the clock. We'll see if he can score a victory from a good position right now. He can play D5. He can play G5. He can at some point play H5. He has
F4.
choices here.
I
F4,
like it.
great. Yeah, just go forward here. The major downside of playing F4 is the E4 square becomes white, but then you have this D pawn going to D5. So I do like Sagar's position here. He's playing quickly. He's playing confidently. And let's see if he can take it.
All right. I mean, here we have so many possible moves for black. Kind of, I kind of want to start playing this like it's a King's Indian. Maybe go Rook F7, Rook F8, and just start storming White's king side. I think that's honestly the best way for black to play. Just very natural moves. You know, you potentially have this open F file. That is, wow. Okay. I mean,
he's going for the
very interesting
attack.
move. Yeah, he's going for the attack. He's being very aggressive.
Just take on G3. How do I? Where's that knockout? You know, like I can take on G3. You take back. My rook is in the right place, but then how do I actually go and checkmate you? That's what I'm having.
Yeah, this is a very, very important question. I mean, now the C5 pawn could potentially be weak too, so you could play
like throw in a rook C8 at some moment.
Yeah, throw in a rook C8.
That makes sense. And Queen C6 actually just to attack.
Oh yes,
something like that. Oh, a nice little double attack here. It's funny because I want to checkmate you along the F file, but sometimes the best attack is creating a second avenue of attack. Instead of just tunneling on the F file, let me make a move like, as you said, Rook C8 or Queen C6 or something of that nature that could benefit Black's chances. So Sagar thinking here, sorry, he's down under 45 seconds. Suddenly he is half the time of Eric, and we've seen this one before, haven't we?
Oh yeah, we've seen this one. We know the story. However, I hope the ending of this story is a little different from the previous ones because I think Sagar just, really deserves to get a good game off. Unfortunately, we've already mentioned this. Clock, the time is part of the game. So having good time usage is obviously going to impact
Yes. So Rook
the results a lot.
Yeah, and Rook F7, it makes sense, right? Protects B7, Rook F8 coming, and this is a move that he spent 45 seconds on. He can't afford to spend 45 seconds. Look at his clock. So that's the tale of this match is Sagar spending copious amounts of times in positions that he understands very well. And for Eric, I mean, he's really just giving Sagar very few chances. Like he's pouncing in opportune moments. He's playing some really exciting chess, but he's benefiting from Sagar's mismanagement on the clock. And Queen G4.
G4. Okay, so objectively speaking, I don't think this is a very good move for White, just because it will double up the pawns, and and then that end game is going to be looking pretty good for Black, especially because it's going to be Bishop versus Knight. However, Sagar is spending so much time on this. Yep. Oh my god.
He's being a bit of a perfectionist. Queen C6 is a good move.
Okay, that's an amazing move.
Right? It saves the queens, attacks C5, it gives a discovery with D4 check at some point, but he spent 17 seconds and now he's down to 12 and a half. He needs to play moves that more quickly, but let's see. He has a promising position right now. Eric is the one who's unsafe. He can take on F7. The rook will just replace the first rook, and then now the F file is Black's for the taking. So I like Sagar's position. He just needs to keep up the pace. Okay, here we go. Rook F1. Take maybe, but I know my queen needs to stay protecting the G6 pawn. Okay, so D4, E4. Okay, I like that move, King H7. Instead of committing to any choice, he puts his king to safety. He protects the pawn. C5 is under attack. D4, I'll take it. Then I'll go Queen A4 at the end. Your pawn on D4 is weak. So Queen B4, I like it. Bishop F8. Just go for the pawn. Just do it. Just go. Come on. Okay. Bishop F8. There we go. 3.9 seconds left. Take that pawn. Okay, Queen is going to B3. Watch out for Queen F7.
Just make a move.
I know. Good move, though.
Queen F7. Queen F7 is going to... Oh, no.
Just go. Okay, 2.3 seconds. He needs to move. He's got two bars.
Queen C2. Yes. Oh, we're going on the offensive now.
take on d3. Pre-move that. Take it. Okay, 2.5 seconds. Pre-move queen e3 check. That's what you have to learn how to do is pre-move here. Queen e3. It won't be a bad move no matter what happens.
Queen h3. Oh.
Oh, yeah, he didn't have enough time, but queen e3 was good. Oh! Queen g3 is winning. Oh, he's going to lose g6 pawn. No!
Oh, my God!
No! How did he get that move off?
Oh, no! He got checked. No!
And the time is up, both in this game and in the 3+1 portion. Oh, how in the world?
That was such a good game by Sagar. It was such a good game. If he just had like 2 more seconds, maybe, I just think he could have. Oh my God.
And Eric blanked him in that section. It was 6-0 Eric Rosen in the 3 minute plus 1 second increment time control.
Oof. Oh. I mean, even though the result is in the 3+1 time control is a 6-0, that is not an accurate representation of Sagar's chess skills because, as we all saw, he's playing absolutely phenomenal chess.
Yeah.
Time is just something he's probably not used to. He's probably not used to playing 3+1, but he's playing absolutely amazing.
He really is, and that's why I tend not to focus too much on the score, like the result, because it doesn't tell you how they played. However, this is an elimination match, so he needs to score. We'll see if he can right this ship. It feels like it's getting too little too late, but we have the bullet ahead. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back with this matchup between International Master Eric Rosen and International Master Sagar Shah.
All right, and we're back, and we're going to be diving into the bullet portion really, really soon. I mean, whew, it's been a very, very intense match so far. Honestly, like my heart rate is just sky high. Watching them battle it out with such high quality games is honestly very exciting. And even though it's 3+1, you might think that the games are not very high quality. They indeed are. And it's just been very unfortunate for Sagar, honestly, that time is just some days it is just like that, right? Robert, I'm sure we all have those days.
We certainly do. I know them very well. Not that today is that day, but kind of every day is that day for me. But it has been very good chess. You can see it from Sagar. He's playing well. He's just playing slowly. And for Eric, he's also playing very well, and he has the lead on the clock. So it's been sort of balanced on the board throughout most of it. But that's what Blitz is. Blitz isn't just about, let me find good moves every move. No, let me find good moves and do it so quickly. So Eric deserves all the credit in the world. We do feel sorry for Sagar. I mean, it doesn't feel nice to lose on time a bunch of games like this, but Eric has deserved every single game that he's been winning. He is pouncing and he's opportunistic. And in that last game there, he was able to survive in a way that most people couldn't even dream of, just to then land a checkmate and a win on the clock.
Mm-hmm. And before we dive in the bullet portion, I mean, I just want everybody to, show support for both players, Eric and Sagar, who are both playing absolutely stellar chess. We've talked plenty about how Sagar is very, very prominent in the chess community. However, he is most likely not playing as much blitz and bullet as Eric is, So he is, however, putting up an absolutely amazing fight. And it's been an absolute pleasure to see him play very, very solid chess today.
And the real question is, are we going to see the Stafford Gambit? I guess he can't really play it because Sagar isn't playing E4. But when will we see those vintage Eric Rosen Gambit lines? That's what I am anticipating in the bullet. And for Sagar, we'll see if he just can play freely. The stress of the match can sometimes force your hand to shiver and you won't play as fast as possible. But with sort of the match result, it's looking like it's out of hand. Maybe he can just move freely.
Yep. And this is not strict bullet. This is 1+1, which is still very, very fast. Wait, why is he spending so much time?
I think his connection is struggling right now.
Oh, no.
Yeah. He's got one bar that I see, but he's still moving. And also, his bullet rating is very high. Like his blitz rating was 22 something. His bullet rating is near 2,500. So maybe he's better at bullet than we thought.
Maybe. I love the way you put it. I mean, I definitely think that maybe the connection is causing a little bit of issues for him at the start, but we're off now. We're doing okay now. He's making fast moves. We're getting to a very comfortable position for white here.
Carlsbad structure.
Yeah, the B4, A4, B5 pawn push is coming in. And these are the plans we need to see in bullet because it's so easy. These 5-move plans that you can make, and there's not really much your opponent can do. It's just easy moves to make while keeping your time up. Eric, however, has only spent 4 seconds, and Sagar is actually down to 30 seconds. So,
yeah, I think Sagar here, he knows what to do, but he's trying to be perfect. Taking on c6 at some point, going rook after c1. You just go after this pawn on c6. But he made a big decision there because after f takes, watch out for bishop f5, hitting the queen and the rook on the diagonal.
I definitely do like Black's position a little bit more now, just because he has the pair bishops. I think that can be very, very strong and can be, quite literally game changing. And wait, knight takes
d5. Yeah, hitting the queen, hitting the bishop. Oh, that pawn was pinned.
See that? Oh no.
Yeah.
Remember to always look for captures, right, guys? Checks, captures, threats.
And that capture is still possible, but it's not as strong because the end of it, there'd be bishop takes f3. So queen h4 coming in for a checkmate. Watch out for h2. Don't play h3. The bishop will sacrifice itself. g3. Look at those light squares, though. It's not so pleasant, but no checkmate for now. So rook fc1. And it feels like black should have an attack, but if you don't attack quickly, then white is just strategically and structurally much better.
Yeah, this is
Rook takes f2. I think he probably could have taken on f2 there.
Oh, the time difference is just crazy.
Yeah, 10 seconds for white, but he's playing some good moves lately. The queen gets ready to sacrifice.
Wait, what about bishop f3, queen h3? Is that very close? That's very close. I mean,
yeah,
g5
g5.
now, g5.
Oh, knight h2. Only way. Take his bishop off. But there's going to be a sack on G3. I mean, this is
Yeah,
just
we already know. I mean, Queen takes G6 holds it for a little bit longer, but this is okay. Well, Bishop takes G3. Very, very
mm,
natural.
mm, mate, checkmate.
Oh
Yeah, this is a brutal finish, but that's actually how the
no.
game was going because Eric,
Mm.
he kept playing with purpose there, and Sagar missed that knight takes d5, that one little tactic, and after that, the game was clearly in Black's favor.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing some very, very aggressive gameplay from Eric, and this is the kind of gameplay we associate him with usually, so it's definitely very nice. Also, I just realized this is the Karo Khan Briar variation. I didn't realize there's another Briar variation. I only know the one from the Spanish, but Chess.com is telling me that this is another Briar.
Well, I guess he was very flexible as a chess player, going through different variations. And here
Mhm.
it doesn't really look like a Karakhan at all. It looks like
Yeah,
some just solid positional
it
game.
looks like the
King's gonna,
Briar.
yeah. And now knight takes e4, just take back. If the d takes, we trade queens. If bishop takes, now I can play f5 at some moment to challenge your bishop on e4. But all right, Sagar is not he's not committing to anything. So Sagar goes knight to d7, and he's can move knight to f6. He's playing casually. He's taking his leisurely pace.
Mm-hmm.
So
All right, king takes knight. All right.
okay, so what now? What now? Bishop e6 looks reasonable. The thing is, I like
I
Black's
wanted
position,
the long castle actually. I was really cheering for a long castle there, you know.
so you can go for an attack.
Yeah, that's my kind of way. You know, we go long castle, we play f4, we play f5.
Yeah,
Life is simple when you just push your pawns up board.
it's true. It's simple in either direction. Either you just go a
For sure.
checkmate, or you lose the game. But either way, it's
Yeah,
simple.
it's okay. Yeah, it's simple, right? Like
I'm with you. And well, speaking of simple, we've simplified. The queens are off the board. This pawn on
that
a2.
pawn didn't. Was that not a free pawn? Am I?
There could have been some c4 stuff. So
Oh, true.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah, you're right.
it's getting sneaky over here, but White's pawn structure is compromised with these double pawns, but you also have an open b file that you can use to your advantage. So I would try to put a rook on b1 in the near future.
For sure. I mean, here, you just it's a very solid position. I think this endgame should be objectively speaking a draw. I don't see a way. I don't like b5 because it undoubles the pawns.
Yep, but it does
Um,
give you an eventual attack on the c2 pawn, right? If you can just
right.
coordinate well enough, rook c8 comes and that could come. But I like that move a4, really good move.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just trading everything off on the queen side. So your assessment of it should probably be a draw, that looks pretty accurate. But I'm looking at the clock situation. We're getting into time trouble, and we know how those games have gone.
Yep.
Okay, so we have just a sort of clamp for both sides. The c2 pawn is stuck in place. The b5 pawn was under attack, and rook here. I'm wondering, Nemo, if at some point there's like a rook b7 and I take over the 7th rank, and Black's king can be in big trouble.
I honestly don't really think so. I think White's a little bit too tied down now with defending his own pawns. I do like Black's position here. I think it's quite active, but maybe now Rook B7 because Rook takes
Oh,
A6. Of
nice.
course.
Look at that. Like, see, Eric is finding these moments where that was hanging for one move. It just happened, but he noted the difference in the position and he just takes that pawn, and now he's up a pawn.
You know, I think Eric did a lot of puzzle rush recently.
It seems to be an time.
Uh,
Time.
I mean it's object. Oh, his rating was still provisionary, right? Because I just saw a minus 42 for Sagar, so he doesn't really play that much
Yeah.
bullet. But I mean, Black could potentially hold this endgame. I don't think it's fully lost yet. It's just very, very difficult for sure.
Right. But time went out, so now it is lost. And well, Eric keeps on winning. His bullet rating is above 2,600, so
Mhm.
he's thriving in this match. It's funny because he started off on fire. He was 3.5, 1.5 ahead, and then Sagar won 2 games in a row. Like, okay, wait a sec, this is a match. And Eric said, no, it's not. Like, I'm gonna just take all the next bunch of games. So he's won 8 games in a row for Sagar. The time control, the time trouble has never been his friend.
And also the internet troubles is also not his friend.
Yeah. And I think that's why the clock is paused for a moment. We're just trying to resolve the lag for Sagar because it has been a struggle with his connection. So, this match still has nearly 18 minutes left. Is it possible for Sagar to win the match still? He'd have to win 8 games in a row. There's probably not enough time, mathematically speaking, if the games go in normal distance. So yeah, it seems that Eric Rosen will take this match, and if that happens, or when that happens, I should say, Nemo, in the bracket, it means that he goes on to face Levy Rosman. So what do you think of that matchup of Gotham Chess versus International Master Rosen?
I think that this is a matchup that all the fans have been waiting for. I mean, obviously, Gotham Chess versus Eric. Yeah, this is going to be really exciting because not only, are they really big personalities on Twitch and YouTube, they also have very interesting game styles.
Right. Yeah. No, it's going to be a matchup of fan bases. That's what I'm really interested
Yeah,
to
for
see.
sure.
To see how loud the fan bases cheer for their respective parties. There's definitely overlap. Of course, people can like more than one person, but when it's a match of just two players, somebody has to win. And Eric Rosen versus Levy Rosman, that will be a fun one.
This is one that I'm definitely going to be following.
Yes, indeed. So we think we're about to resume the play here. Hopefully the connection issues have been resolved, that the lag is minimized. And for Sagar, let's hope that he can get a few good bullet games in before the end of the match, just to feel like you end on a good note. It has not been going his way since the 5-minute portion. He probably wishes that, hey, can we just play that 5-1 over and over again? Let's keep with that.
He definitely wants the 5-1 back, yes.
And this is exactly what happens when you're not an online player. So, while we have a moment, I just want to remind everybody of a great upcoming event. It is the FIDE Online World Corporate Chess Championship. And there's still time to register. So if you're part of a company and you have a bunch of players that want to take part, do get involved, register. Just do a quick Google search, find out how to do so. But it will be February 19th to 21st.
Wait, if I'm part of Chess.com, am I allowed to do it too?
I don't think that chess companies are taking part. I think this is more for other types of companies.
Okay.
But, yeah, I think the chess companies would win those kind of competitions. But I do know that companies are allowed to have a ringer. They're allowed to bring on one player, and the maximum rating for that player is one player over 2,500, I should say. So you can bring on a player. So Nemo, if you find a company that needs a player, you can go ahead and slide yourself.
All right, you guys already know what I'm gonna do.
Are you gonna start your own company?
Yeah, I'll just start
my. You're gonna have employees. Somehow I'm one of your employees.
Yeah. Wait, I'm thinking now. I have things planned.
The Botes sisters part of it. Nemo LLC. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm here for it. So yes, if you do like chess, if your company wants to get involved, you can register. I think the registrations are still available for a few more days, but there will be some strong teams out there because in the New York City Corporate Chess League, there are teams like a couple international masters on them. I know Google, of course, well, they're a huge company. They have many strong players, but it's going to be a good event.
This is going to be very exciting. I'm excited to watch this. And it's going to be there's going to be PogChamps, oh my God, so much amazing chess content coming up.
For sure. Well, while we resolve these issues, I think we're going to take a quick break just to allow the players to figure this out. And when we return, we will have the finale of this bullet portion of this matchup between Eric Rosen and Sagar Shah.
Right. And we are back. The game has already started, and this is an opening that Sagar is pretty familiar with, right? We've seen this already twice happen at least.
And yeah, Eric plays this D4 line. So it's a long time since we've seen this, but we like the position that Sagar was able to get. Although you like initially black setup, which I can buy, but in that game, something went wrong for Eric along the way. And then white got that C5, like knight into the D6 square.
Yeah.
So we'll see how Eric handles it this time.
I mean, I definitely think.
Oh.
Oh, wait. This is a tactic, but does the tactic work?
Let's see.
Okay, so.
This is wild. If you castle, he'll take on C6 and then take on E5. But black may be down a pawn, but a ton of compensation thanks to this light square bishop. Here we go. We have liftoff here.
Wow, this has become very complex. I mean, Sagar came back from the break and just suddenly started playing super aggressive openings. I like this.
Yeah, he's down 8 points. He needs to win the games, and he's won a pawn. His knight's coming to E4. What attack does black have, right? You need to attack.
Black has, well, I mean, the A8 to H1 diagonal might be a little weak, but...
Yeah, just get that bishop there. But he moved his bishop to F5, did Eric. And so now the knight just gladly stepped into E4. The queen can come to, well, not to F3 anymore because the B2 pawn is hanging. But at some point, that queen can consider going there. Or, hey, why not? Let's trade queens. I'm up a pawn. This looks great for white.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a very solid position. I mean, this is one of the first times, I think, in the match when we've seen Eric actually lower on time, so he's definitely sweating a little bit. And I think C5 here is extremely strong because then you get your knight to D6. We've already seen the knight to D6 theme before, but this one's going to be even stronger.
Yeah, I'm looking at F5 as well to try to go after this bishop on G6, but I dropped my C5 pawn. So queen C4, let's be wise about this. There it is. Protect the pawn on C5, attack the pawn on D4. Maybe this rook can come to E7, pawn to F5. White's attack is really quick.
Yep, definitely very, very nice position. Queen takes D4, also possible. Queen takes B2, sure.
Okay,
I mean, we don't really care too much about the pawns at this point. I mean, when you're going for checkmate, pawns are secondary, you know?
I'm with you there. And rook B, that's a good move by Eric. Eric has done a really good job of staying in this game. Queen C3 offering the queen trade so that the king feels safer on H8. And white does have plenty of time here. But look at that advantage slipping. I saw the eval bar just jump down there. Watch out for rook to B2 and checkmate along the second rank.
Oof. I think rook to B2. Yeah, we're just gonna go. Queen E2 is forced here. Or rook E2 is also pretty okay. King G2, maybe?
Yeah, queen E2 though. I like your move. Just retreat. Oh.
What?
No.
Wait, no way we're going for the draw. Okay, Queen E2. Okay. There's no way we're drawing this, right? I mean, this is the one chance you have for winning, and we can't draw this. So.
And Eric played for a win. He went Queen C2 instead of Queen D2. So if he loses, it's on him rook to back to E2, rook E7 to E2. Then you win this bishop. Oh, nope. Okay. This time we're gonna get a trade.
Wait, that's a free rook.
It's a free rook. Take it. Okay. Finally, Sagar gets this one here.
Wait, what's Sagar doing?
Knight F7 mate.
Oh my god. Oh, okay. It was just lag. Okay. Oh my god. I was so stressed there for a moment.
Oh my gosh. And Eric put up great defense in that game. Like that, the fact that he lost the pawn, but then drummed up all of his counterplay with his queen and his rook.
Yeah.
That was really well done, but Sagar had the time to calculate. That's why time is so important.
That was a very, very clean game.
And by the way, look at Sagar's rating. He went from 2380 whatever to
gotta love that provisional rating.
Yeah, it has not stabilized because he hasn't played enough games. And he's, speaking of stabilized, his position right now for black is very solid here. White, though, doing well with the bishop on C4, a little bit more active. And moves like H6, you think, what has changed? The G6, F5 squares. At some point, knight coming into the game on this side. But Queen B1, Queen A2 is Eric's first thought. Okay, so Queen A2, go for the pawn and knight E5.
All right, this is a very, very easy. I was just there for a moment. I was thinking about knight E5 and then realized the queen protects F7 anyways.
Yeah, and the knight at C5 is nice because at some point you can just put a piece on E6 and you can start trading off. Whoa, D5 getting sharp. Is there going to be some kind of sack here? Whoa, we have Sagar Shah ready to play Queen F4, Bishop D6. Let's go for the
Wait, what happened during that break? I'm sorry. What did I miss?
Yeah, what has he been fed? Like, what kind of food has he been eating during the break? He's like had a couple protein bars, and he's just ready for all of the excitement.
He's ready to go. We before the break, Sagar was using so much time playing like slow chess, and now it's just What do I want? Well, wow, like this is beautiful chess. Like it's just so aggressive. Every move is with purpose.
Giving up
He's
all
up
these pawns in the
time.
queen side. See, the dark squares are more important to me.
Wait, are we sure we didn't get the name swapped or something?
No,
You know?
no, we're good here. Queen b6, bishop c5 to follow. If king to h1, there might be knight h5 into the g3 square eventually. You have to watch out for rook takes c6.
Oh no!
No!
Tactics! Puzzle
No!
rush!
No, I saw it coming. The rook will follow, and the king is in trouble no matter where the queen goes. This rook can either take this knight with check, or the rook can go elsewhere to win the queen. So I'll
That's
follow
called the
away.
caster's jinx.
Yeah.
Or commentator's curse, you know?
We won't praise the players anymore. The players are really just not doing anything special. It's kind of blah.
Yeah, they're just playing normal chess. This is stuff you would see every single day on chess.com. Yeah.
Yeah, moves are being made. The bishop is a bishop. The knight is a knight. Oh, the queen
no, the
is a queen, and that queen
is gonna be a little bit gone.
Yeah, no, rook takes d5.
He's trying, but sadly.
You get part 2 now. You take the knight that was in the way, and now the rook moves again, and the king is in check. Oh, gosh, this is what a good game though. It
was going great until it didn't go that great.
And credit to Eric. He was super alert. He had a bad position. He knew that Sagar had the upper hand and was playing really well, and yet he stayed focused, and he saw rook takes e6, and he pounced as soon as available. I've used that word pounce many times, but that's because I feel like that's what Eric is doing here. He is getting some good positions where he just puts Sagar away, and then other times when it's complicated and stressful, he's ready for the tactics when they become available to him.
Yeah, Eric is playing absolutely phenomenal chess for sure. Wow, English is very difficult. I've been trying to conjugate English words, and for some reason I'm struggling. I just say the base form of it, and I'm like, wait, that is not quite correct.
Nobody can tell the difference. Just don't bring any attention to it. You're good. Yeah. You're good.
Yeah. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, well, we have a situation where black is a pawn ahead, but I would be very nervous about this bishop on g2, hitting the pawn c6, threatening a takes b5. The rook is undefended. So some kind of
White's position is so good. It's like Sagar is getting into such good positions, and I'm just like, oh my god, I'm so happy for him,
Yeah, and he does have time right now, 41 seconds to 31 at this point. He's up 10 seconds. Now, knight takes c4 is a free pawn. The rook protected b5, but the rook is not defended. You want to look whenever their pieces in a row with each other, what happens when the piece in between them moves out the way. Unfortunately, Sagar plays e4, which is a great move, very tempting. But
knight takes c6.
Oh my gosh, and e5, I see you with the tactics. But this is not what Sagar wanted, because queen d6 can be played, trying to fix the pawn structure and get a passed pawn. But if black doesn't take, then white remains down a pawn.
Yeah, there's just so many, exciting tactical moves that can happen in these positions. Here's c5 or...
Rook b8 is also reasonable, but this bishop on g2, that's
a sad bishop.
Very. Do not take on f5. Do not take on f5. Although f6 becomes scary, so you have to be on the lookout for f6 in a quick attack. He does.
No, he took on f5.
That bishop is now a bishop again. It's regained its former glory.
Yeah, now it's a bishop again. It was going to be a tall pawn, but now it's a bishop.
Queen f4. Watch out for e6, f6. The rook on b8 is not defended, so I like queen f4. It's trying to play for tricks. Queen e4 is also good. Hitting c6, f6 still a possibility. 8 seconds. Barely got that move off. e6 is possible. f6 is possible. What's going on here?
A lot of things is happening. Eric is being super aggressive. He has 3 seconds.
Queen d5. Queen g4.
Queen g4?
Yeah, that's mate, and the queen's hanging. Yeah. Eric
he realizes that immediately and just has to go. Sagar is going to checkmate black in 2 moves. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Eric was playing really well. He had a bad position coming out of the opening, and he was holding it, but man.
Rook d1.
Rook d1. I love that. I love it. He smiles too. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he's having a good time. And Eric is he's a comedian at the board. And he's one of those, it doesn't seem like he's joking. And even when he makes jokes, he just has this, I don't even know how to put it. He's just, I wish I had the word. It's a very highbrow sense of humor. But Eric is awesome. And Sagar,
he's a natural.
He is. And Sagar is, he's great. he's getting back some wins here. He's going to feel better about things. Watch out for e4. Okay, the knight's under attack, but e4 is a typical tactic to win the knight in c3. But
when analyzing, like when commentating bullet games, all I'm looking at is, can he take here? Can he take that? It's just like, it just becomes constant tactics. It's like doing mini puzzle rush.
yes, and there it is. I see them to deadpan humor. That's what I was looking for. It is very difficult, everybody, to talk chess, try to come up with vocabulary words, but thank you. Deadpan humor. I really like Eric's sense of humor. I've known him for a long time. He's actually a great photographer, for those of you who may not know that. And he's often a journalist at many of the top events, so he'll play blitz with the players in the free time, and he's just a great guy. So I know Eric quite well, and now, well, he's getting to know Sagar quite well, and he plays f4, saying, hey, your turn to think, you're in time trouble, I'm up 20 seconds, and look at this position. G4 comes to mind, the knight on g6 isn't defended, bishop d5 check, knight to d5, use all the squares available to you.
This is looking pretty good,
to say
for
the
white,
least.
for Eric. It's definitely one of those, I mean, he could have just taken on f5 too, I'm sure, but I feel like at this point, Eric doesn't want that pawn anymore. He just wants to absolutely crush black.
Oh, knight c6.
Position. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. It's so hard to make a move in this position. It's like Eric is playing this game absolutely beautifully. He came out of the opening with a tiny bit of edge.
Yeah.
Black played a little too passively, played a little too slow, and then all of a sudden, this is what happens.
And the matchup, it's out of control at this point. But if this were a close match, this is the moment where you just resign, right? You just try to get more games going. But for Sagar, it doesn't matter in terms of the overall match score. There's a little bit of prize money at stake.
To have some fun.
He said, "Are you not entertained?" And the answer is yes. Sorry, my apologies. But yeah, this knight on c6 was the hero. It forked and then won the rook, and now it's back on c6, perfectly happy. Is that a queen's like almost trapped, but it has the g5 square. And all right, f5, forking more. This is the game of forks.
Yeah, this was a bit of a painful game. Eric played absolutely beautifully.
Yes, Eric's in great shape right now. And, I want to say that it's one of these matches where the storyline often is, oh, Sagar lost on time and he had good positions. That's true. He did have good positions and he has lost on time. But Eric deserves so much credit for putting pressure on the board and the clock. Even when he's been in trouble, he has been the most resourceful player that you can possibly imagine.
For sure.
Finding these tactical moves that save the day, just saying, even if I'm lost objectively, we got to keep the game going. And if you keep the game going longer and longer, your chances to survive increase.
And that's something we all really need to learn from, right? It's not giving up when you're just worse, and instead just fighting back and playing for that win. Eric being able to convert so many positions in which he was worse into a win, that is a lot. That is skill right there.
Oh, 100%. You hear this from the top players all the time because they get in bad positions too, whether it's Magnus, whether it's Hikaru, but the ability to be resourceful and to dig deep and never give up, that's an essential part of speed chess in particular and chess more generally. So look at Eric, went his knight to e5, stole a pawn in c4. His queen is in line with a rook, but there's nothing you can do to exploit that. So you're up a pawn, b2 is hanging, the bishop and the queen lined up perfectly. It's going to be another win for Eric, 93.
Oh no, another fork.
Yeah. Now you can just take the
Gotta
rook and
be careful of those knights in bullet chess.
Eric's knights. He's just been using them perfectly in this match. And well, does White even have a move here? I'm trying to come up with something.
So hard. It's so hard.
That's why King H1 was played.
Yeah, it's one of those waiting moves.
Yeah, bishop a6, take on e4, take over the f file. This is pretty straightforward. Yeah, Sagar is probably tired. It's also late by him, but he's not going to use that as an excuse. I mean, the thing he's going to say is Eric played great, and my time management was bad.
And for sure, Eric played great.
Yes.
Eric just played absolutely beautiful chess.
And look at this, bishop d3, take on f5 with the queen. All of your pieces in the game right now for black, and you are up material. So
this one might be a go next angle. Not much to say here other than, White's just kind of trying to hang on. Fortunately, not a lot of moves are even like possible to be played. Like
No.
you can't barely move your pieces. Everything just okay. Well, rook e1 here is or anything really.
Yeah, queen g3 first, rook e1 next. Rook e1 actually still was possible there because of the checkmate on the dark square. Ooh, there goes that rook. And there goes another victory for Eric Rosen.
Oh my god. Okay, well, Eric's just running away with this match. I mean, 14.5 to 5.5.
Yes.
That's Oh, he's thinking a little bit on
Uh-oh.
his second move.
Are we going to get this again? We are. We're going to get this funky bishop c4, but no queen e2 this time. So that's
it's
good.
probably going to go into the periods, right?
Yes. And it's got like these vibes of a potential king's gambit that was declined. But I like what Sagar's doing, a5, going on the queen side, because white is going to strike in the king side at some point. So get activity while you can on the queen side. Okay, can be knight d7, knight c5.
I mean, this position is just looking pretty solid for white.
Yep, but b3, bishop a2, b3 is going to be played. That's like, you play the Spanish often, right? And sometimes it's that move, you sacrifice a pawn just to shut down the bishop. This is one of those moments. b3. I wouldn't even think.
And then you have to reroute your bishop to b1, and then it becomes a big pain. Yep.
And he's going.
Way too familiar with this.
I think we know that b3 is coming. Why else put your rook on b8?
Yeah. I wonder what rook b8 could be for.
There it is. But now this bishop is going to come to like d4, a3, and then the pawn on b2 is defended, which means a2 is falling. So it's a pawn sacrifice at this point, and black is not thrilled about that, even though he got the bishop off the board.
Yep. Now we might see some c5. I mean, I think this is very good for white. Like, you have the center. You have a really weak a5 pawn to go attack. You have possibilities to expand on the king side. Like, this is a dream position for white.
It certainly is. And it goes to show that Sagar didn't want to sacrifice material, but sometimes that safer method causes you more problems because look at this. He ended up losing the material anyway. So that temporary pawn sacrifice with b3 was justified. And now knight d5 is a threat, so probably play e6 to stop it. But when you play e6, the dark squares on your king side become weaker. So here, e5, knight d5. Oh, okay, g4. Trying to kick the knight away to go knight d5. Wow. Just going to go checkmate him.
All right. Well, I wonder what rook h3 could be for.
I don't know. You tell me.
maybe we want to, just march our pawns up the board. I love f5 here. And I see pawn, I push pawn.
And I like what... Oh, that's a pin knight. And the knight can't be defended.
Well, rook takes h5 here.
Okay, true. The knight is hanging here, but at least you quick counter shot on queen takes c3. And then c2 is hanging. Can I take on c2? No, but rook h2.
Wait, queen takes c2?
Well, there was rook g6 that scared me. He's 5 seconds left.
Oh, so right, true, yeah.
30 seconds to 5 seconds. So,
I mean, there's actually a lot of chances here for black. Oh, wait a minute. Wait.
Take on c2. Take queen d2.
Why don't you just take on c2?
That was a free pawn. You want that pawn. I promise you want it. King f8. Run your king away and take on h5. Sagar's winning this piece. 1.8 seconds. I would play like queen takes e6 or something to flag him. Just try to win on time, But
the thing is, he probably, I usually in these kind of positions, I pre-moved every single capture.
Yeah, pre-move rook takes h5 because there's nothing white can do about it. So even if queen e6 would be terrible because rook h5 comes with a check.
Wait, Eric is using all his time now.
Yep, but he's trying to figure out a way to win on the clock. And king there, queen h1, good move. Queen h4, just go. All right, if queen f1 is rook f3, rook f3. Oh, missed it. Rook f3 would have won the queen. I had that lined up, and now black is even in material. Is that right? I can't count quickly enough. Even material, yes.
Even material.
Oh my gosh, and even on the clock. So rook a8 coming to win the a5 pawn.
Oh, I don't like this pawn push.
Yeah, because king have d4 check, and you could have won the f4 pawn.
Wait, this rook takes f7 though.
Rook f6 now is going to win for white. I like the king coming in though. King e3 next.
The king's trying to check me. He's trying to check me.
King d4, go! No, it's too slow though.
Okay, yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, rook f2, you're going to lose g6. You can take f4. Maybe there's some chances to draw this, but you're down 2 pawns.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. And that pawn, that passer is speeding.
Rook e2? Wait, rook e2, and then a4, a3?
Wait, it's a draw again.
Yeah, somehow Sagar escaped. He's also playing really quickly. Like, he had 1 second, and now he has 6 seconds. So he
is warming up.
Yeah, he's in pre-moving. He's getting his bullet skills back, and it's Eric who's the one in more time trouble right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so king b5.
The time scramble there was just crazy. Oh wait, this is winning again.
Oh, the rook gets to f4. That's huge. King a3.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna get the a pawn and then 2
Mhm.
pawns, and this is winning.
Yep. And you can even play with like c4 check because the king will have to go away. Now king 2. Ah, you just go. Don't take on a4. Oh, actually, you can because it's not mate. Rook a7 look like mate. King c4 back. Just go king c4.
Try to checkmate him. Try to checkmate him. Oh, king
Yeah.
c5 would have been cute there.
Yeah. So it's going to be a win for Eric to cap things up, unless he loses on time. Always possible, but no, Sagar loses on time. Oh, whatever.
Oh, what an intense match.
Wow. Well, we need to go to a break. Sorry to cut you off there, Neil, but we need to go to break so we get the players in. We can interview them, hear their thoughts. We'll be right back with Eric and Sagar.
Sounds good.
And we are back with the players after what was a very hard fought match. Congratulations, Eric. You played really well. So I'd like to start with you. The match was tied 3.5, 3.5 after the 5-minute portion. What do you think went right for you after that?
That's a good question. I mean, I started winning games consistently, which definitely helped. I think the shorter the time control, the more of an advantage I had. I think I was able to avoid flagging in some of these crazy time scrambles, and that can definitely play a big role. So yeah, I was happy with the later stage of the match.
For sure. And Sagar, what about you? What on your end did you feel like went wrong? I would guess time management would be part of it, but can you maybe explain to people what it's like shifting roles from somebody who talks about chess often to playing it yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking forward to this match very much. I know that all the chess knowledge that you gain by writing stuff, analyzing games, commentating, does not guarantee you a good performance because of the practical playing skills are lacking. So I tried to cover them in the last 20 days or so. I tried to play a bit. I tried to train myself. uh, I think if I had not trained myself, I would have done worse than this. So, I guess a little bit of more training, maybe a month or so more, could make this match closer. But I think um, when the time was running low, Eric was playing very well, and I think full credit to him for winning this match.
Yeah, no, we just want to say to you, Sagar, we both were very, very impressed with your level of gameplay, and we
Thank you.
talked extensively about your involvement, in the greater chess community, and watching you play a lot of the games and having many, many good positions, but then losing a little on time. That was very unfortunate. That was
I
very
thought
unfortunate.
Eric made very good use of his knights when he
Hmm.
would close the positions and then sort of uh,
Knights
not
knights are very tricky, so
Yeah,
yeah,
no, it's
yeah.
they're fun
very
to play with.
tricky.
He made sure nothing was hanging, and I when I tried to over push or something, then I would get trapped or somehow hang something. So that was one of the recurring themes in the match. But
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think knights are more of a like a better piece than a bishop in low time situations. Sometimes even trickier than a rook.
yeah.
So have to value them more in blitz.
For sure. And well, Eric, a question for you because you were
Mhm.
willing to mix and match different openings, it seems. So, what was your preparation like for this match? And I mean, you seemed to really concentrate on some aggressive lines at points, and then other times you were a bit more solid. So, what was your like, sort of mindset going in and how you would play?
Sure. I mean, a big part of my preparation, I don't know if anyone or everyone knows this, but Sagar streamed a lot of his kind of training sessions with Adivan, Strong Grandmaster. So I tuned into a bunch of those and tried to scout out some of
Oh, he
his
did
weaknesses.
homework. Oh no.
Stream snipes.
Well, for one of them, I joined, and then like the moment I joined, they were panicking, saying like Eric Rosen's in the chat. I was wondering like how they could tell because you can't really tell on YouTube, but someone was like
No,
impersonating me on
yeah,
YouTube.
exactly.
So, but I was still watching. I didn't want to say anything though. But they were super instructive. Like it's super interesting to watch like an international master get a lesson from a grandmaster, and
High
they weren't
level
doing so much
coaching.
opening preparation, but
Yeah.
I still got a sense for Sagar's style, and they were trying to scout out my weaknesses. Um, so yeah, I was trying to make games as exciting as possible to get kind of my style.
Yeah, yeah. I also checked your game with Irene yesterday, and
Oh,
so we both tried to get to know each other. And also Adiban, I would like to thank him. He
hmm
helped me a lot in this match, and it was also my wife here. She was following all the games while they were happening, and so in the break, I would go and ask her if is there something that I can improve upon, and then she would suggest me. So maybe that actually helped in one of those games where the Catalan game where I played Queen D3, I improved with Queen D2. So
That's so
I noticed that. Yeah,
wholesome.
unfortunately, I don't have a wife to help me with that sort of thing.
Well, I actually have a question, a follow up question here, because you were just talking about Sagar working with Audubon, and you do a lot of journalism. I've known about your work and followed you for a long time. But how much work do you put into getting better yourself as a player? Because there's a big difference, of course, between commentating. I know from experience, I'm not improving as a player when I'm commentating and doing all this stuff. You need to focus on your own chess. So, how much are you doing, and what is that experience like?
well, I was doing nothing much because when there is work, I just don't commentate. I also have a company to run, so it's like an entire organization with a lot of people working together. So I specifically worked for this event. Like 2 days, I did not do any videos or any articles or something. So the last 2 days was very intensive. I prepared all the openings and everything. So I think that it's different. Like with regular commentating and annotating, you can really get a good feel for chess. But if you then mix it up with regular practice every day, then you can improve. But I think the priorities are set, like you have to I have to make sure I do some other things, so I'm not able to dedicate that time to polishing my skills. But every time I play such a tournament, it inspires me to start preparing again. So I want to thank chess.com for inviting me to such an event. And last 20 to 30 days were great fun, preparing for this.
Yeah.
For sure. And I guess, Eric, we know it's getting late for both of you. Well, for you in particular, Sagar and Eric, we appreciate your time. But question for you. You play against Levi Rozman in the next match. What do you expect from that? How do you see your chances?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to maybe start preparing. Levy, I've known for a long time. We're good friends. We're kind of rivals. A few weeks ago, he called me out on Twitter wanting to face me in chess boxing. And I'm not really into contact sports, and I don't really like hurting people physically. So
I'll take your spot. I'll fight Levy in boxing.
oh, if you want to,
play,
yeah.
You can play him in chess. I'll do the boxing part.
So I'm gonna do more chess preparation. If Nemo can take him down in boxing, that would be all the better.
Let's go.
Well, you are both two of the nicest people in chess, great ambassadors for the game. We really appreciate you taking time with us after a very stressful and tough match. So thank you both. Congrats to you, Eric and Sagar. Again, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you back in more competitions.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank you,
much.
Robert. Thank you, Chu. And I also want to thank all the viewers who were supporting. Also, Vidit was streaming and there were a lot of people watching it. So sorry for losing so many games on time, but thank you for supporting me.
No, thank you very much for taking your time out, both of you, to play today.
Thanks.
Yeah. So there you have it. The quarterfinals are set. Eric Rosen moves on to face Levi Rozan. We heard his thoughts. And Nemo, I just have to say, they are so wholesome. That was an amazingly friendly interview. They have so much mutual respect for one another. Eric saying, hey, I actually was watching his learning experience, his coaching sessions, and I was learning through that. So it's really nice to hear how even super strong players like international masters, they have a lot to learn. They're working on their game every single day when they have a match coming up. So I really appreciate that insight.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the most maybe heartwarming thing for me was how much effort really both of the players put into this match, like just how much like Sagar is explained that he took days off from work, and we all have talked about how he's mentioned himself, he has the company to run, he has a million other things to do, but he really was invested in playing today. And that is like, results are one thing, but kind of like hearing those kind of stories like makes me feel really good, Yeah. And of course for Eric as well, I've played Eric in a match before, and he's actually told me he's prepared as well. So it's just always hearing about these chess players and how they're always looking to be the best that they can be. That is wholesome.
And I love how motivated Sagar is. Like, he wants to play more chess now. He lost, and he lost by quite a large margin, but he's like, no, let's keep going. I want to get back into this. And I love that about chess. And it's a good reminder that these players have been studying chess, working on their game for many, many years. And it's hard to just go and play. So when you have an engine by your side, even we as commentators, we have the evaluation bar, it becomes easier. It's not stressful. And I know from experience that when you jump right back into it, it can be difficult. So thanks to both of those players. Nemo, thanks to you for joining me for what was a great match.
Thank you, for having me. Thank you.
And we want to thank all of our viewers, of course, for sticking with us, tuning in, and enjoying the show. There's more chess coming your way. Title Tuesday is about to begin. So I think we got to sign off, get out of here, and the title players, it's their time to shine.
All right. See you guys.